From the talk of the town to the whisper of the village.
Counter number 4, please.
Breaking global sports news and the answers to questions you never even thought to ask.
Has anyone got a spoon for my kiwi fruit?
The Two Mikes
Just like in that film.
on Talk Sport.
Look at the light!
You worry too much about the time.
Yeah, no, I worry about it.
The chevonnement. Chevonnement.
We don't often talk about bees in a sports show here in London.
You don't want drunks in churches. You reserve drunks in churches for Christmas Eve only.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes, and it's time to say a very warm welcome to Mr. Mike Porky Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. Welcome to you as well. A day of great achievement. A day, a day of great achievement.
Great achievement.
Day of great achievement.
What have you been up to?
Well, I think you're going to reveal the figures on winners and losers, and I think there has been a concerted campaign from the general publico, from the listenership, from the people who are the very essence of this programme. Those are the people who switch on their radios and take in what we are saying down the old line there. And I think you'll find that...
it's been an incredible actual... I mean, the whole day has been amazing.
You know, from a negative, I've managed to turn it into a positive.
Well, I mean, you might say that, but I mean, it was so close. It's almost too close to call. I mean, if it was an election, I think they'd be asking for a recount. If it was...
that sounds to me like I've narrowly won.
Well, it may well do. I'm going to just look at the figures now that have come in.
Oh, you haven't looked at them before? Because it closed at midnight.
It did close at midnight,
that was 65 minutes ago, and you still haven't got your act together.
Yeah, well, I've got them here.
You're a sloth. You know that, don't you?
No, I'm not a sloth at all.
Sloth.
No. I just make sure that things are absolutely and utterly correct. All I wanted to say to you is I wanted to try and just recreate a bit of the drama because, I mean, right up until the end, basically, there was, people voting. The vote was going up and down.
Yes.
I mean, at one point you were 1 point ahead. I mean, incredible, considering how many people voted. Because we're talking about, in excess of 500 people voting.
I know, it's amazing.
And the difference at any one stage from about 8 o'clock tonight was never more than about 7 or 8 votes.
No, that's right.
It was absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah.
And so as it started off this morning, I was reasonably well ahead of you, but somehow you caught up because there does seem to be, and I did see a couple of tweets from people saying, I haven't listened to the podcast yet, but I'm going to vote for Porky anyway.
Yes.
And obviously the day was also
I thought it was very nice of them.
Yeah,
Thank you very much
it was
indeed.
very nice. Not quite in the spirit of the thing, obviously, because the point is you're supposed to listen to the winners and losers competition and then decide which way you want to vote based on merit.
Yes.
Not based on the fact they're just going to vote for you or me because they like you or me better.
No, it's not a question of do they like us better or anything. It's a question of, we know the calibre of this man. We know his mettle. We know what he's all about.
Well, that's why I'm surprised anybody votes for you.
No. And therefore, we assume that he's got his ducks in a row in a more perfect way than you have.
Certainly there was no doubt that there was an awful lot of pleading on your behalf. You sent out at least 6 tweets begging people to vote for you.
No, I didn't.
Yes,
I've never done that in my life.
Would you like me to find them?
Well, all I said was, I just said that actually... Are you aware that there is a public vote going on? And if so, please make up your own minds and then vote for the person who you think has got the best winners and losers, which just happens to be me.
Is that what you tweeted out?
No, I didn't tweet that out. I mean, I gave the impression very clearly that I was on top of the game and that you weren't. Well, simple as that.
Because what I can do, if you like, is I can refresh your memory and let you know exactly what you did actually say.
Well, why? I don't need my memory refreshing. It's not relevant now. The vote finished at 12 o'clock, so why would I need
Here's one from 5 hours ago, which would have been just after 8 o'clock.
OK.
One more push, please, folks, so I can beat up old MG in winners and losers. Go to the Two Mikes and vote for me by pressing favourite.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it's called gerrymandering.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's using your powerful influence on Twitter to get people to vote. Here's one from 8 hours ago, which would have been, around about 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
OK, fine.
Don't forget to vote in last night's winners and losers poll in the Two Mikes. The poll is still open. Vote for me by choosing favourite.
Yes, that's right. But that's just offering our listenership an alternative and an option. That's all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is. You should realise that, but you don't seem to realise that. Now, the thing is, Mike...
here's one from 20 hours ago.
Yes.
Remember to vote for Porky in the winners and losers competition on the Two Mikes by hitting the favourite button and not the retweet. So that's 3 separate messages that you sent out on your Twitter feed, right?
Yeah,
do you know how many I sent out?
No.
None.
Yeah, but you're too idle to do it.
No.
You don't apply yourself to these things.
I don't believe in trying
You don't apply yourself to these campaigns.
I don't believe in trying to skew the voters.
You're a fat idle slob when it comes to mental...
Is this your new compassionate self?
Yeah, that's right. It is. Yeah, when it comes to trying to get involved in these sort of things, I do it because I believe the audience want me to do it.
Yeah.
They want me to win for them. I'm not winning for myself. I'm winning for them.
Well, until tonight, the score was 10 to me and 4
to you.
Now,
do you back your followers in the same way I back mine?
Well, no, I believe...
Do you go the extra mile for your followers like I go the extra mile?
Because there are many of my followers who would have voted for you, because what I wish my followers to be is fair, above all else.
Who was it who said, I would walk another 500 miles for you? Who was it?
Was it the Proclaimers?
It was, yeah. The Proclaimers say, I walk another 500 miles.
Well, you can walk 500 miles if you wish.
You won't walk 500 paces.
What I try to encourage...
And if you did, you'd damage a few paving stones.
What I try to encourage is for people to vote with their heads and not with their hearts. If they like my winners and losers better, they vote for me. If they like yours, they vote for you.
It's a load of balderdash.
I don't encourage them to vote for me. Anyway, would you like to know the result?
Yes, please.
Of the, let's see how many people voted. 268 votes for favourite.
That's me.
That's Mike Parry.
Porky, two how many?
268.
268.
Right.
Yep.
And retweets.
Retweet, that's you.
That's me. 270.
No, that can't be right. I can't be. What are you laughing for?
It's funny.
You're laughing because you fixed it.
No, I haven't fixed it. There's the picture. It's midnight. That's the screen grab of the vote as it stood at midnight. As you see at the top of the page, you see the clock time is midnight and 270 to 268. So incredibly close. I think you should be very pleased that you came so close to beating me.
Incredibly pleased. I'm not pleased about losing. I'm a winner.
Well, why is it 10-4?
If you're not winning in life, it's because you're not trying hard enough.
You need to try harder because it's now 11-4. I'm afraid. I'll be tweeting out this particular screen grab. So thanks to everybody who voted. 272. It's incredibly close, though.
Yeah,
absolutely extraordinary.
I think
very
it was
exciting all the way up to the end.
Suspiciously close in my mind.
Well, I think it was suspiciously close too, because there were times when I thought this doesn't sound right to me, because most of the people who I believe are fair-minded out there were saying that mine were a lot better than yours this week.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they were.
No, I was going to say that if you looked at the pure quality of the people I nominated, mine were outstanding quality.
Well, I see you nominated Lukaku for scoring 3 goals in a friendly, pre-season friendly, which you've previously said is a waste of time. Since then, he's obviously suffered from the Porky jinx, and he was taken off injured tonight, I believe.
No, he's taken off as a precaution, actually.
But precaution? In case he goes to Manchester United.
No. He's not going to Manchester United. That'd be ridiculous.
Memphis Depay.
John Stones is an interesting case, because I said 3 weeks ago that I'd heard the buzz from Merseyside that people had travelled down the East Lancs Road from Old Trafford to Liverpool when they first got wind of the fact that Chelsea were interested in John Stones, and that seems to have built a little.
What do you mean?
Well, Everton and Manchester United have a very close relationship in terms of having done business together over the years. Obviously Rooney was the big one, but another, Phil Neville going the other way and all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. Obviously, John Stones, we want to stay at Everton. Who knows? We don't know.
But I don't know what you mean by that reference to people walking down the road.
The East Lancs Road is the road that connects Manchester to Liverpool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm saying that, people have been travelling both directions.
Oh, you mean footballers have?
Yeah, I mean advisors from 2 clubs.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
So you're saying you think he's going to Manchester United?
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I think that... I don't think Chelsea get a free rein on getting hold of him, and I don't think... Well, Everton definitely don't want to sell him. They certainly don't want to sell him at the latest price that Chelsea have offered. Manchester United are in a spending mood, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You can tell.
Well, we're going to be talking about spending.
Well,
because,
exactly,
there's this big row going on. It's all on the back pages tonight, as well as it was yesterday.
Yes.
Between Jose Mourinho and Arsene Wenger.
Yeah, I don't quite understand it, actually. I don't actually know what, What's the issue here?
Jose Mourinho is simply winding Arsene Wenger up. That's the issue,
I know.
Right? And Jose Mourinho is very good at winding Arsene Wenger up because, as you know, Arsene Wenger's team has never beaten a Jose Mourinho team ever in the whole history of football, right? So they've got the Community Shield coming up on Sunday. So Jose simply said that he thinks that Arsenal are now ready to win the Premier League title because they're spending so much money.
But what's wrong with being a checkbook manager?
Well, apparently Arsene Wenger objects to being called that.
Well, that's ridiculous because dwelling again on Everton, in 1963 we won the Football League Championship and we were called the Merseyside Millionaires because we were backed by the Littlewoods Pools betting empire run by a marvellous man called John Moores, who became Sir John Moores, who also owned the Littlewoods stores and catalogue, the sales catalogue, shopping catalogue, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And Everton had more money than all the other clubs put together in those days and went around buying all the best players, including, by the way, Tony Kay, who then went to jail for allegations of betting on his own team to lose. Yeah, it was a terrible time, and that was a terrible case. There was terrible injustices going on. But anyway, look, getting back to this, I mean, I just don't get it, because surely all the best clubs in the world have checkbook managers. If they didn't have checkbook managers, the manager of those best clubs in the world wouldn't be doing their jobs.
Yeah, but what's interesting,
you get loads of money, you're supposed to spend it on the best players and build the best teams and then win the best competitions and become the best club in the world. That's what you do.
Yeah, but you see, Arsene Wenger doesn't like getting a bit of his own medicine, because earlier in the week, or towards the end of last week, he was banging on about how Manchester United are now trying to buy the title.
Yeah, I know,
and so now when he's being accused of it, he doesn't like it. But when you look at the figures in terms of how much money was spent, right? Last year, for example, it's not always the case that the team that spends the most money wins, but last year, Chelsea spent £118.5 million, and they actually won the league. But they didn't spend more than Manchester United, who spent £148 million, basically, and they came fourth.
Yes, I know.
Arsenal spent the third most, 95.
Have you mentioned Liverpool?
Came third, and Manchester City spent 80 million and came second. Well, Liverpool's spend was not recorded there, but Liverpool have spent an awful lot of money in the past not to win the Premier League.
Yeah, exactly. They wasted an awful lot of money, I'm afraid.
They
That's
were the third biggest spenders in 13-14 when they came second. Right, back up to some other years where they spent even more money than that. Let's see, where are we? Let me find this.
You've got all these facts and figures at your fingertips, are you? Funny, you can't seem to find them.
First biggest spenders in 2008-9, where they came second.
Yeah, who's that?
That's Liverpool. They spent more than Manchester United, spent more than Chelsea, spent more than Arsenal, but they didn't win it. Same is the case in 2007-8. Liverpool came fourth, but spent 70 million and spent more money than anybody else. So they've spent a lot of time spending a lot of money and not winning anything.
Why are you giving me all these figures? Why are you trying to scramble my brain?
So that you've got some facts at your fingertips.
Yeah, but these are dull and boring facts, and the audience now...
Well, I know you don't like facts.
The audience now will be wondering why you've become, the mathematician of the modern world.
I'm just trying to back up my argument with some facts and figures, which I know that is very unfamiliar to you. We're going to talk to Mark Donaldson about it coming up a little bit later on. However, we've got to talk about a couple of other things coming up, and it's all going to be happening soon on TalkSport. This is TalkSport. We are the two Mikes. Chelsea have already gone 1 goal up, Mr. Parry. I'm afraid you were arguing with me so much. We didn't see Eden Hazard scoring a great goal. This is the guy who Jose Mourinho says is better than Ronaldo. He's just scored a goal against Barcelona, Ronaldo's nemesis. So,
yes, that's right.
Let's see how the game goes.
That's right. Where's this game being played?
It's being played at a place called the FedEx Stadium in Washington.
In Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, I believe so.
That used to be... Didn't that used to be the Robert F. Kennedy Stadium?
I don't think they would have changed the name, would they?
No, I think so, yeah, because I'm just trying to remember where it is now.
I don't know where the FedEx Stadium is in Washington, but I'll find out for you.
Yeah, OK, that's fine.
It's 1-0 Chelsea. Great goal by Eden Hazard.
You're probably right. They probably wouldn't have changed it from Robert F. Kennedy.
I can't imagine they'd want to change it.
And Robert F. Kennedy's very much a...
I mean, they're still renaming things. I mean, the
Yeah.
Triborough Bridge, for example, in New York, is not called the Triborough Bridge anymore.
What's it called?
It's now called the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge.
It's not, is it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What, the one that goes from Staten Island through...
No, it goes from Long Island over to the Bronx, basically.
Of course it does, yeah.
And you would sometimes take it if you were taking the taxi from
JFK,
that's right.
Yeah, of course,
upstate or something like that.
Triborough, yeah.
But I was in a car one day going up that way, and I said to the driver, are you taking the Triborough Bridge? He said, what? I said, you take the Triborough Bridge. He went, what's the Triborough Bridge? I said, well, it's this bridge you're on.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, this is the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge, sir.
I didn't know that. Isn't
that
amazing?
Changed it relatively recently, yeah.
Just imagine how history will look at that. So you leave John F. Kennedy Airport and you travel into Manhattan on the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Anyway, there you go. Now, that was the theme music to the Battle of Britain, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Battle of Britain theme, yes.
Right. Do you know why we played that?
Why are we playing that?
Well, let me tell you, we have had a massive victory here at TalkSport, and I'm very proud of it, and I want to thank you, Mike, for helping me with the campaign.
Do you?
Basically, the story is Ken Wilkinson is 97 years of age. He's one of the last of the few. He is a Spitfire pilot who fought so bravely during the Second World War. He was 22, or 21, actually, when he first took up in his Spitfire and fought the Messerschmitts of the Luftwaffe, right?
Yeah.
On his way out of Britain over to the continent to meet the Messerschmitt fighters, he used to pass over Kent and the cricket grounds below him and used to wonder whether it was the last thing he'd ever see of England because he was a cricket fanatic,
yes,
OK?
That's right.
And we discovered this week that living in his home now where he does in Birmingham, in Solihull, where, believe it or not, the third test starts today.
A little bit later on, yeah.
Absolutely, at Edgbaston in Birmingham, very close by. At 97 years of age, he no longer has access to the TV pictures, to the cricket, which is his great passion, because he used to watch it when it was on the BBC, but it's now on Sky.
Right.
So he listened to it on the radio, and he said it was still great and all that. You can imagine it in his head, but it would have been nice to have seen the pictures. So I spoke to a friend of mine at Sky this morning.
Okay.
And by mid-afternoon, an operation was underway to make sure that Ken will have access to the pictures today.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is fantastic. So the hands of the Porkmeister are all over this, and you've actually done the guy a massive, great thing.
Well, I don't want to claim all the credit. I spoke to Sky, and honestly, they reacted so positively, so immediately, that off they went. They came back to me a couple of hours later and said, look, it's all underway, don't worry, we're on top of this one. So, really, we've got to thank Sky Sports for getting involved and making sure that Ken will be able to watch the Ashes on television rather than listening to it on the radio. But it's a wonderful gesture.
But it is a great thing that they've done, but it's also a great thing that you did to highlight it, I must say. Although, I must say, you know, I've watched your demeanour tonight, and I didn't realise that this had all happened, so I'm very glad that it has. But, there is it's the first successful campaign you've ever run.
What?
For a start.
Are you mad?
Well, there's no other campaign you've ever run that's ever actually worked.
Are you crazy? I run successful campaigns all the time.
No, there is no campaign
I save
you've ever run.
ducks from being killed on a regular basis.
No, you don't.
I do. I have a duck conservancy, and that's why I look after them.
That's hardly a campaign.
Of course it's a campaign. All the time I campaign for people. I campaign to get better roads for motorists in London.
Yeah, it's going really well, isn't it?
And fewer roads for cyclists in London.
Yeah, that's really going well, isn't it?
Well,
They've got more roads for cyclists now, and every night you come in, you complain about the fact that you can't get here.
It's not my fault that Bojo, which is the colloquial name for Boris Johnson, who was the mayor of London, is obsessed by destroying the city's roads and replacing them with Amsterdam-style cycle superhighways.
My point is simply that it's not what you would call a successful campaign. Similarly, Tommy the Chimp, who tried to get freed, is still in a cage.
Yes.
So, you know, basically, you haven't really succeeded with that. But I did wonder about this because of the vote being so close in winners and losers.
Yes.
That actually, you know, this was rather a self-serving thing that you did. Because effectively, trying to get Sky to sort of get free television for
for Ken Wilkinson?
Yeah.
Self-serving?
Yeah, self-serving.
That's a miserable thing to say.
No, because I think in essence what you were trying to do was to gain sympathy with the audience, right?
Are you
that
mad?
They would vote for your winners and losers. The only explanation, your winners and losers were useless.
No.
Your winners and losers should never have garnered more than about 100 votes. And because you did this so-called nice thing, because you're not supposed to be a very nice person, and suddenly this is the real Parry coming out.
That is a terrible thing to say.
You've suddenly done a decent thing for once in your life. You did it purely and simply to get a win at winners and losers because you were 10-4 down and you wanted to make it 10-5. That's what I'm going to put to you.
That's a terrible thing to say. Honestly, I did it because my father was 17 when he joined the Second World War, but he joined the Royal Navy.
Yeah.
And later got torpedoed in the Atlantic.
Yeah, we've heard all that.
And so I have an empathy.
So he said. I mean, I don't know if he did or not.
Well, you are a revolting man to question my father's valour during the Second World War.
Revolting?
Yes.
This is after all the names you've called my father.
So I have an empathy. Well, your father didn't do anything except go around bombing Canada and India, which were actually both on our side.
He was called up.
Yeah.
Nevertheless.
Yeah, he was called up.
His entire air crew were killed in an accident.
Yeah, but that wasn't because the Germans forced him down.
No.
It's because I'm afraid he was flying with incompetent people who flew there.
No, he wasn't flying with them. That's why he wasn't on the plane.
Well, okay, he was in a squadron of incompetent people who flew their airplane to the side of a mountain.
So it's all right for you to insult my dad.
I'm not insulting your dad. I'm just saying that, I will not take those sort of insults against my father, who was a war hero.
Really?
Now,
Did he get a medal, did he?
Sorry?
Did he get a medal?
6 medals.
6 medals?
Yeah, my mother still got them. Well, let's
have a look at them.
At home in Bournemouth.
All right.
What do you mean?
The pictures of Joan Collins.
What?
Are they with the pictures of Joan Collins?
What are you talking about?
We've never seen.
How can you possibly equate the picture of an actress,
well, I don't know,
decent and glamorous as she was, with the valour of the men who fought in the Second World War? You are a shallow individual.
These are all things you say you have, but you never produce them.
I'm going to say a little bit more about Ken.
Yeah, go on.
He was in Squadron 616, that's 616, and 19 squadrons, based in East Anglia.
Right.
Job was to protect the industrial areas of the Midlands and the North from the German bombers. And he said, I was one of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
I saw friends fall out of the sky, aircraft go up in flames, terrible things. I'm not sure younger generations really appreciate how close we came to becoming a suburb of Berlin. When the war was over, I became a chartered surveyor and settled down to normality and put my former life behind me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just a wonderful man and a wonderful gesture from Sky. Thank you very much indeed. And I personally am delighted that I had a very, very small part in making Ken's life at the age of 97, after his heroic service to his country, a little bit more comfortable today when the Ashes start.
Yeah,
excellent, well done.
Well, isn't that nice? Well, now you'll be pleased to know that people have fallen for it, and you've got John here, for example, who's tweeted in saying, what a real star Mr. Parry is. Genuinely a really nice bloke.
Thank you.
Frazzle says, well done, Porky, for helping the RAF chap out. He says, however, MG's probably right about the ulterior motive.
That's disgraceful.
Yeah.
That's disgraceful. I mean, look, I don't want any recognition for what I've done. I mean, sure, there's not a lot of people would have done what I've done.
You don't want any recognition?
Yeah.
You've just been talking about it for 2 days on the radio.
Well, you know...
Listen, I'm delighted for Ken, obviously.
And
I think that what you've done is a nice thing that you've done.
Yes,
but I've known you for too long to not think that there was some kind of ulterior motive going on in that tiny mind of yours.
No ulterior motive from me.
Because you know how you love to be popular.
No ulterior motive from me, pal. Now then, we need to get back to matters football, don't we? Because, of course...
Well, we've hardly got any time now.
Well, I'm going to tell you anyway.
You're too busy self-aggrandising
The mighty Everton scored their second victory in Scotland on their tour of Scotland tonight.
Who did they beat this time?
Dundee, 2-0.
Dundee?
Yeah, that's right.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, well, it is fantastic.
Get the bunting out.
Sorry?
Let's get the bunting out. So they've now beaten Heart of Midlothian and Dundee.
That's right, absolutely right.
Well, that's great preparation.
Well, you can only put what's...
Chelsea are playing Barcelona.
Yeah, I know that. You can only beat what's put in front of you. I think it's very...
Why are they so cheap and only want to go to Scotland to do their pre-season playing?
No, you idiot.
Well,
they played in the Singapore Cup in Singapore, didn't they?
Yeah, they didn't win that either, did they?
Got to the final there.
They lost to Arsenal.
Narrowly beaten.
No, they got to the final.
Yeah.
They played one team.
Yeah, that's right.
Called Singapore.
No.
No, who did they beat?
Stoke.
Oh, they
in
beat
the semi-final.
Stoke on penalties, didn't they?
Exactly, that's right, yeah.
Fantastic.
And the great news tonight was that Ross Barkley scored, which is his second cracking goal in pre-season, which augurs for a very, very good season
So
ahead.
when Raheem Sterling scores in pre-season, it doesn't count. But when your guys score in pre-season,
it depends who you're paying. If you're playing Vietnam,
well,
who are the
145th. They're playing Dundee.
Best. Dundee are better than Vietnam.
Do you reckon?
Dundee are 10 times better than Vietnam.
10 times better than
Vietnam.
Vietnam?
Telling you.
Are you sure?
I'm telling you, if Dundee played Vietnam, Dundee would win 4-0. Dundee are a brilliant team.
OK.
I'm telling you, when it comes to comparing them to Vietnam, OK?
I don't know how good Vietnam are.
Well, you know how good they are because they're 145th in the world and something like that, mate. And I'm telling you,
I'll check that out.
I don't want people to make any jokes
about it. Have you seen the story on the
it.
back of the Mirror, by the way, which says that McCarthy's going to Spurs?
McCarthy?
Yeah.
You mean my McCarthy?
Yes, of course.
And it's on the back of which paper?
From the famous Lennon and McCarthy.
Yeah.
Do you not look at the papers before you come in? It's on the back of the Mirror.
Let me just
I mean, you've been so busy tweeting out about what a hero you are.
I see. It's old Darren Lewis, our old mate Darren Lewis, OK?
He very rarely gets anything wrong, Darren.
Yeah. I used to call Darren the Baron.
Did you?
Yeah, because that used to sum up some of the stories he used to write on the back of the Daily Mirror, believe me.
Yeah.
Tottenham will open talks with Everton over midfielder James McCarthy this week. Well, OK, have a few talks if you want. That's all right, that's fine. James McCarthy is very happy at Everton, and I expect him to start the season in a blue and white shirt.
Who's saying that?
That's me saying that.
Oh, you're saying
that?
Yeah. All right,
yeah.
OK, well, I'll disregard it then.
This
is Talk Sport. We're going to talk to Mark Donaldson, a man who knows a bit about Heart of Midlothian. He'll tell us exactly how good they are and exactly how good Dundee are as well. He's coming up next on Talk Sport.
Talk Sport.
And it's in!
A diving header at the end of a 50-yard run.
From the root to the tip.
Talk Sport.
I don't want to change the world. I'm not looking for a New England.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. It's Ask Porky tonight, of course. We've got loads and loads of great questions, but if you want to find us at the Two Mics, you can tweet a question to us. It can be of a personal nature, a business nature, any number of different things, and Mr. Parry will be very pleased to try and help and give you a good answer for it. We've got lots of tweets coming in, some in support of Mr. Parry and his rather nice deed that he did for a former Battle of Britain Spitfire pilot.
Absolutely.
And some people also admiring my suggestion that you may have done it with an ulterior motive in mind as well. Come on, MG, says Mark from Bristol. Give Tubby a little bit of credit. It was a nice gesture to sort out the Sky deal.
Thank you.
And Gav says, another success with the elderly pilot, Mr. Parry. We know you are the real man of the people.
Thank you.
And Mike, or Ian rather, great news, Porky. You're making a campaign for Ken. He got what he deserves. Well done.
Yeah, and there's one here from Liam who says a new #1 single for Porky. It would be called Superstar. And I think you're absolutely right. Thank you very much indeed.
The self-congratulation is going to start again.
Yeah.
Tom says, well done, Porky, for getting the Spitfire pilot free Sky TV, but you are still a loser. Copcat says, well done, but definitely self-publicist Mike Parry. Well done, Ken. And then he adds, I think Everton might go down this season.
Oh, don't be ridiculous.
We've just seen Oscar hit the crossbar, which almost rhymes, doesn't it?
Oscar and crossbar.
Oscar and crossbar
yeah.
In this game between Chelsea and Barcelona at the FedEx Stadium.
Oh, by the way, sorry, mate, to interrupt there. What Liam was saying was, you know our jingle, I'm up all night with Mike Parry, we're up all night with Mike Parry, we're up all night
Funny enough,
with
there's
Mike
a
Parry.
jingle about you.
Yeah, well, that's right, yeah.
Doesn't mention the Two Mics.
Liam says that's good enough to be a #1 hit at Christmas. Well, that's brilliant. I'll have to go and see the creative people at Talk Sport and tell them to get working on that.
Yeah, why don't you get them to do some more jingles just with you on them?
No.
Yeah, why don't you?
Hang on.
That's what you do.
I just heard one in the middle of a first half hour of our show, which which highlighted the fact that both of us work on this show. I don't know what you're moaning about.
Well, because all you ever do is publicise yourself. That's the whole point. Anyway, let's talk to Mark Donaldson.
Let's do that
patiently, because I want to ask him about this subject that you're obviously too thick to get your head around, that you cannot actually buy the Premier League. Mark, a very good morning to you.
Behave, you two, behave.
Well, we're trying.
Quite right.
We're trying to. It's not easy.
Is there any way of winning the Premier League without buying it, Mark? I don't think there is.
Yes, there is.
No, there isn't.
Well, Everton are going to win the Premier League after they beat Hearts at the weekend. So obviously, if you beat Hearts, then you're the best team in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
So,
funny you should say that, Mark, because the lad who opened the scoring was a lad called Conor McAleny, right? And he's a fantastic prospect. He's 22. He's been with Everton since he was 11. Sadly, his career got interrupted when he broke his leg out on loan against Brentford. When he was playing for Brentford, I think it was 15 months ago. But he's back, and so if you're not going to buy the Premier League, Mark, you're going to win it by bringing through players like this young Conor McAleny. But that's never going to happen, is it? That a team's going to produce 5 or 6 players like that from their academy.
I read a stat, or I found a stat. I was doing a piece for ESPN towards the end of last season, and it kind of surprised me. Since Sheikh Mansour took over at Manchester City in 2008, they have not had one homegrown English-born player start a Premier League match for the club.
Unbelievable. I absolutely agree. And all it means is the more money a club's got, the less it seems to be prepared to be patient on the development of younger players.
The problem you've got, lads, is in 12 months' time, the new TV deal is going to kick in, the BT and Sky deal with billions on offer. I did a piece for ESPN yesterday about John Stones and whether he goes from Everton to Chelsea. And that could end up being a bargain. If Chelsea get him for less than 30 million, if he is to go and Everton accept the bid,
I totally agree.
That could end up being... it could be twice the price.
Yeah.
Up to twice the price in 12 months' time. So Everton's dilemma here is one of two. If they get a bid from Chelsea in the region of 28 to 30 million, do they accept it, or do they wait 12 months knowing that his price and the price of any other young English talent in British football could maybe double? Yeah,
well, I'll tell you something, Mark. In 2 years' time, and I've talked to experts about this, and people at Everton, and people at Chelsea and Manchester United, John Stones will be worth £80 million.
The issue that Everton have, what if he breaks his leg in January? I hope he doesn't, or February. I hope he doesn't have any injuries, of course.
Yes.
But then you've got a player that you can't sell next summer. But this is a guy who signed a new deal last year that keeps him at the club until 2019. So
that's right.
Everton don't have to worry about losing him for nothing or a nominal fee based on the fact that they've brought him through. So they've done the right thing. They've got him under contract as well. But when you see guys that are signing from Hull going to West Brom, James Chester for $8 million,
I know.
it's getting ridiculous here. And it's not a case of what a player is worth. It's a case of what you have to pay to get that type of player. And when you get relegated as well, what do you want to do? Do you want to spend $8 million on the likes of James Chester? You know you've got a guy that can play in the Premier League to that level, or do you want to try and bring through a kid who you think could be really good but is untested? That's the dilemma clubs have got.
Yeah, but look what Stoke are doing as well. I mean, Stoke are buying a load of young players from Spain because it seems to be cheaper than to actually sort of cultivate themselves. But I was trying to explain this to Porky a little bit earlier, Mark, and he can be a bit dense at times.
I am not dense.
When you start giving him statistics. But I'll ask you this question because I know you'll understand it. In the last 10 years, how many times has the team that spent the most money on that season actually won the Premier League? How many times do you think out of 10?
I would probably say about 3.
Not a bad guess. It's actually 2.
Oh, really?
2005-06, it was Manchester. It was Chelsea when they spent 78 million quid, and the only other time was 2011-12 when it was Manchester City who were the one that spent the most money. Every other single year, teams that have spent the most money in the Premier League have not won it, and I think that's a staggering statistic.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting statistic as well, because if you've got that statistic, that's like saying you've got all the money in the world, but just buying players, you can buy 11 individual players, but you can't buy the team. I mean, look at the team ethos that Manchester United had. They didn't go out and buy and spend millions upon millions every year. Right. They cultivated that side over a course of a number of years. Ultimately, Man City came along and they won the title, and then Chelsea won it as well. But that proves to me that it's no guarantee that money can always buy you success straight off the bat.
Right. Well, in fact, every single title that Manchester United won during that period from 2005 till now, they were never the team that spent the most money. Liverpool were quite often the team that spent the most money, and they never won it.
It's interesting now. Would you think that a Jose Mourinho or Manuel Pellegrini, if they could win one, not two, but if they could win either the English Premier League, or Arsene Wenger as well, or the UEFA Champions League, what would they take?
Oh, they'd pick the Champions League.
I think they would as well.
Yeah,
and I mean, there's a case of you're not starting in the Champions League until September. You're playing 6 group games. Then you've got your round of 16, so you've got a potential quarter, semi, and final there. I'm not saying it's easier to win the Champions League. Of course it's not. But it's all about priorities as well. And Shaka Hislop, a colleague of mine at ESPN, was up in Montreal, speaking with Jose Mourinho, and interviewed him. And they were talking about various things as well. And Shaka said, look, I'm not going to be two-faced to you. I had a go on ESPN FC about Chelsea in the second half of the season, and that you didn't reach the heights of the first half of the season. He said, that was because it's impossible. He says, you're right to maybe have a go. We weren't as good as we were in the first half of the season. He said, but we had to try and prioritise. They ended up losing Diego Costa to injury. They had Nemanja Matic with issues. They had Cesc Fabregas with issues as well. So he felt it was a job done. Now, they lost to Paris Saint-Germain, which was unfortunate as far as he was concerned, but he wanted to win that Premier League more than anything. And the Champions League, of course, would have been a huge thing for him, but he was adamant that he needed to get some semblance of a trophy at the end of that season. And he would have loved to have got both, but that's why Chelsea weren't the same as they were in the first half of the season, in the second half of the season. And Mourinho felt, when he said to Xhaka earlier yesterday, he felt that was the sign of a good team, that they were able to change the way they played, and as a result of the injuries, basically have put the team out that played in a different style but still got the job done at the end of the season.
Absolutely right. And just finally,
What do you mean,
Mark,
finally?
Because I want to talk to Mark about this issue, which might take us to the end of the
but talk to
Hang
Mark.
on, excuse me.
I would actually quite like to ask you a couple of questions
Just button in
I'll
a
keep
minute.
the answer short.
Right,
Try and keep the questions short.
Yeah, Mark. Finally, there's a report in one of the papers tonight saying that James McCarthy is, in talks which are progressing. He could be leaving Everton and going to Spurs. You see, what I don't get is this. If James McCarthy is so good that he thinks Everton are now not good enough for him, why doesn't he go to a club which are demonstrably better than Everton? Because Spurs aren't. Spurs are on about the same... No, they're not.
Everton
no,
finish?
no, they're on about the same level as Everton.
Where did Everton finish?
I don't care where Everton finished.
You don't care?
In terms of the size of the club... Well, Everton's history is more impressive than Spurs, right? In terms of the size of the club, they're absolutely equal. James McCarthy moving
Spurs
sideways...
are playing in Europe. Maybe he wants to play in Europe.
Moving sideways... In the UEFA League?
The Europa League.
Europa League. Who wants to play in the Europa League?
Well, you wanted to play
Only
in
an
it
idiot
last
wants
year.
to play in the Europa League.
You wanted to play in it last year.
Because you wear yourself out.
You wanted to play in it last year until you got knocked out.
Anyway, I was asking Mark the question. Mark, don't you think it's ludicrous to move sideways in the Premier League? If you want to go to a much bigger club that's
maybe
playing
you
in
go
the
play for
Champions
Dundee, that big team that Everton beat tonight.
Champions League, then you can go there. But I see no sense whatsoever in this move.
You can only consider a move to someone that comes in for you. Now, who's bigger, Sheffield Wednesday, Leeds, or Bournemouth? Right now, Bournemouth are playing in the Premier League. They're not a bigger club.
It's true.
But they're in the Championship, Leeds and Sheffield Wednesday. So, I mean, the issue is who isn't bigger. He can only be interested or not be interested in a club if they come in for him. Would he get into that Spurs midfield? There's another argument.
Yeah. Well, Stephen Pienaar made the same move.
Hang on, excuse me. You've talked enough now.
No, he went from Everton to Spurs.
You've talked enough now.
And then packed it up and went back to Everton.
Because he wasn't any good. Let's ask Mark to just speak his mind. Mark, why don't you just admit that Spurs are actually currently a more successful team than Everton? They're playing in Europe.
Rubbish. Nonsense.
I think Spurs will finish above Everton next season.
Well, they might.
They might. Of course they might. The way I look at the English Premier League,
it's not a particularly exclusive club, that is it? Number of clubs that will finish above Everton.
There are 4 teams for me that have a chance of winning the Premier League next season. Chelsea, Manchester City, Manchester United and Arsenal.
Definitely.
Then you've got the rest who I think might have a chance of getting in the top 4. For me, there are 4 leagues in that one league. Your top 4 who might have a chance of winning the title. Then those that have got a chance of maybe finishing in the top 4. Then your also-rans who are not really going to get into Europe or not going to go down. And then your guys that are fighting the drop. And right now, I'd have Everton and Tottenham Hotspur in that band that have a chance of maybe getting into European spots. So I'd have them around the same right now.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
He's being very diplomatic.
Do you want to nitpick here? Do you want to say, oh, my dad's bigger than your dad? Because that's the way it seems to be going.
It is. I totally agree. Mark, thank you very much indeed for putting that into perspective.
Anyway, let me ask you one final question, Mark. Because you were here, because he was here covering the Open in St Andrews, back in the old country, and he was here covering Wimbledon as well. What were your observations of life in general while you were here?
The weather?
I'd love to be back. Yeah, coming back. Well, Mark and I were old colleagues, right? We used to work in Edinburgh together.
It's no wonder he left and went to America.
Why don't you just go for a little walk while he and I have a conversation?
You take a stroll, pal.
And I'm just interested in what he made of coming back to Britain, because whenever people go and live abroad, I'm always interested in what they made of Britain when they came back.
Oh, really?
So what did you make of it, Mark?
How twee.
The 20-degree weather difference between London and Edinburgh is still in place. Didn't surprise me. I loved having a wander down the South Bank, and unfortunately Scottish summer has disappeared. As far as the two sports that I covered are concerned, Tiger Woods will never win another major, and Andy Murray is in your Everton and Spurs bracket of, on his day, can win a major or get something big, but Novak Djokovic, unfortunately, is your Chelsea or your Man City right now, and it's going to take a big performance for Andy, and hopefully he can do that at the US Open that Marin Cilic won last year. So that's what I made of it. I missed the place, and it was good to catch up with people when I was back.
Good stuff. Well, lovely to have you back in place in the United States of America. Yeah. Mark Donaldson there from ESPN. I managed to get a couple of words in. He managed to get a couple of words in. Porky still riding high on his so-called good deed for the day, getting some veteran from the Battle of Britain a Sky TV so he could watch the cricket. Isn't it marvellous? This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course. It's nearly half-time over in the United States, where they're playing at the Washington Redskins Stadium, the FedEx Stadium. Chelsea 1-0 up against Barcelona. For a pre-season game, it's quite lively, isn't it, Porky?
Yeah, Washington Redskins Stadium. So it's not the Robert F. Kennedy Stadium after all, is it?
Well, I didn't say it was. I said it was a FedEx Stadium.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But you didn't tell me it was Washington Redskins as well, did you?
Well, I didn't think I needed to.
Well, you should have, because...
Robert F. Kennedy Stadium's in Philadelphia, isn't it?
No. Robert F. Kennedy's in Washington, D.C.
All right, who plays there then?
Nobody, it's a sports stadium.
Nobody plays there, but it's a sports stadium?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it hasn't got a permanent team, that's what I mean.
Well, what do you mean nobody plays there?
Well, no, what I'm saying is...
Well, are you sure like the Washington football team don't play there?
No, that's absolutely right. Of course they don't. Because they play at the...
I'm talking about the MLS team.
The MLS team?
Yeah.
No, definitely not. They haven't got an MLS team, have
they?
Yeah,
they have, yeah.
Washington?
Yeah,
what are they called?
Yeah, I can't remember, but they have got one.
Well, exactly, yeah. Well, they might play there, but they're not very significant.
All right, we'll have to check all this stuff out. You get a lot of stuff wrong this morning.
No,
Let me read
not.
You a few tweets
Yeah,
out.
well, I was going to read you a few as well.
Rob says this: you're a lovable buffoon. Ha ha. What? # seeker of truth and justice.
Yes.
That's applying to you. Mark says, just to let Porky know, McCarthy's not happy at Everton. He says they're not happy at Spurs, as his Tin Pot club never followed through a promise of an improved contract. I don't think he means he's not happy at Spurs. I think he means he's not happy at Everton.
His grouse is, he says that when he first came to Everton, he'd get a renewable contract within 12 months, apparently. And he says that hasn't been forthcoming. And Everton say they've, fulfilled every obligation he was given when he came. Anyway, here's a good one from Bill. He says, tremendous effort, Porky. I salute you for once. Is this a new Christian leaf turned over, perhaps? Well, I've always been a Christian, Bill. I don't know what you're talking about.
You've always been a Christian.
I've always been a Christian. I've always espoused Christian views. You know I have.
No, you haven't.
Right.
You pour boiling water on ants. It's not very Christian, is it?
Now, JPK says...
Yeah.
I can't believe that old Porky can be that conniving to undertake altruism with such wanton ulterior motives over the war hero.
Yeah, well, you don't know him as well as I do.
Well, I'm telling you something, he's absolutely right. Altruism is not something that I would wantonly pursue, believe me.
Really?
Believe me.
Now, here's a guy. Now, guess what? He's an Everton fan, right?
Right.
So immediately you know that he's obviously got some kind of bias against me because he thinks I'm an anti-Everton fan, which I'm not. He says, Shane says, hi, guys, I'm listening to your show. It's really good. I think Mike Graham's a bit of an idiot, and I love Mike Parry.
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much
really
indeed.
Intelligent remark.
No, I think that's a very, very neutral sort of feeling, which a lot of people have. There's a great one here. Comes from Alex. He says, hi, guys. Dundee would not beat Vietnam, hey, Mike. Ha, ha. 10 times better. They would beat them 4-0. Good maths, says Alex. Yeah, well, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking generalities there.
Generalities as well.
We generally get the message, don't we?
Now, here's one from Darren who says, of course, Spurs are currently a bigger club than Everton. They constantly qualify for Europa League, and they're richer and can build a new stadium.
Who?
Spurs.
Well, they've spent 10 years trying to build a new stadium.
Yeah, but they're building a new stadium, aren't they?
Are they?
Well, of course they are. They've just done a deal with the NFL, haven't they?
I'm not sure they have.
What do you mean you're not sure?
Well, I've seen pictures of it, and I've seen, all these, what do you call them, these future-type diagrams, what do you call projects, or what are they called?
Technical drawings.
Yeah, the sort of, when you go to buy a flat-off plan, what you see is an image-like thing of what it looks like when it's built and all that kind of stuff. That's all I've seen of the Spurs Stadium so far. Now then, another one here.
No, I'm told it was actually Dundee United that Everton were playing, not Dundee.
Yeah, so?
So, what do you mean, so? It's two different teams.
Well, yeah, we all know what we're talking about, don't we?
Well, no.
Yeah, of course we do.
You said they were playing Dundee.
Yes, they did.
Well, they weren't. They were playing Dundee United.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
Well, that's what I'm told.
Well, no, I don't think you're right. They play at the Den. That's Dundee, isn't it?
You think Dundee United and Dundee are the same?
No, of course I don't.
Well, then make sure you get it right.
In fact, from my schoolboy football history, I can tell you that the grounds of Dundee United and Dundee are the closest two grounds in the same city.
That's true.
In the British Isles.
That's true. They're right
so
across the road from
I know
each
exactly
other.
the difference.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but you don't know which one they played, though, do you?
Hey?
You don't know which one they played.
Of course I do.
You think it was Dundee?
Yes,
Okay.
that's right, yeah.
Right.
No problem.
All right.
Okay, and I don't know who's told you it was Dundee United, but I mean, that to me is an utterly irrelevant tangent in the show. Right, now then, another one here we go. Right, here we go. John says, I'm with MG, as when has Porky ever done a selfless deed without trying to gerrymander the results in winners and losers?
That's true.
No, this is wrong. I didn't do it for that reason.
Yeah.
Did it because I felt it was my duty and the memory of my father and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Some people are so cynical.
Well, they are. But
Right.
it's not surprising that is the case. Now, Robert F. Kennedy Memorial Stadium is indeed in Washington, the District of Columbia, 2400 East Capitol Street, Southeast.
Told you.
Is where it is.
Yeah.
They also play baseball there, and they play soccer there.
Exactly.
So DC United, which is the football team in the MLS team there, that's where they play.
Exactly.
So that's not where they're playing this game.
No, I saw the England football team play in that stadium.
Did you?
So I knew they played football there. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. On a tour in, I'll tell you what year, it was 1991 or 92, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So there we are. Right, now then, what we need to do is, we need to talk about some important issues, right, because that's what we're here for. And have you identified yet Conor McAleeney, the Everton youngster?
Well,
who
I've
scored
heard
the
you
first
talking
goal
about
tonight?
him,
Yeah.
Well,
because,
against Dundee.
Yeah. Because, of course, we were talking about homegrown players, and he is a homegrown player, and he's probably the best example. Now, does that mean that Everton are going to blood him this season?
Well, wasn't Romelu Lukaku classed as a homegrown player as well?
No.
I'm sure he was at Chelsea, wasn't he?
Oh, Chelsea might have been, but he wasn't a homegrown player.
Yeah, but he was classed as a homegrown player. The whole homegrown player thing is a bit of an anomaly, isn't it?
It is, but what I'm saying is he wasn't a homegrown player at Everton, obviously, because he came on loan from Chelsea first, then we bought him.
No, I know that. But it doesn't always revolve around Everton.
Well,
Cesc Fabregas was a homegrown player at Arsenal, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, because he was there since he was 14.
Yeah.
Romelu Lukaku, I think, only 5 or 6 years.
Well, they've just changed the rules, haven't they? Supposedly
yes, they
changed the rules so that you have to have been there since you were 14 instead of 18.
Yes, that's right. And also, they've increased the number of homegrown players that each squad of 25 has got to have.
Yeah.
It used to be 8, and I think it's now going to be... No, it used to be 7. I think it's going to be 9 or something like that out of the 25. But they keep sort of shifting the rules on that.
Yeah.
So what does it really matter, to be honest? That's
so what's your point then about this guy?
Well, my point about him
Well,
is
if he's any good, right? If he's any good,
Yes.
he gets in the Everton team. He will become a target like Lukaku has, like Barkley has, like Stones has, and now McCarthy.
Well, you hope not,
because they are a selling club, and eventually they have to get rid of all their decent players.
Well, every club's a selling club.
Well, you keep saying that.
Well, they are. Every club's a selling club. Manchester United have to sell David De Gea before the start of the season.
David De Gea.
Yeah, they're a selling club, aren't they?
No, they're not.
So I'm afraid
Absolute rubbish.
The world of football is more political than financial.
No, I mean, that is a ridiculous oversimplification.
No,
right?
it's not.
All right, you tell me, in terms of the players that were bought and sold by the top 4 teams in the last season, right?
Yes.
Chelsea spent 118.5 million.
Right.
Selling club or not?
Chelsea would have to sell any player who wanted to leave them, and in this day and age, because the players have more power than the clubs themselves, I mean, they've just sold a player that...
Surely a selling club is a club that makes more money from selling players than it does spend.
Who was the last Chelsea player to be sold?
To be sold?
Yes.
Well, they've just sent, what's his face?
Back.
Luiz back.
Yes, that's right, exactly. After one season of not making it.
Felipe Luiz. The last big sale they had was old David Luiz, who they sold for 50 million.
That's right.
To Paris Saint-Germain.
Absolutely.
Manchester United last season.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So they're a selling club as well.
No, they're not. So Chelsea are a selling club, in your view?
Well, I'm selling... No, I'm not saying that, you see. You're twisting my words all the time.
I'm not.
I'm saying every club is a selling club.
No, but that's ridiculous.
Every club sells players.
Everton sells players because they have to.
Every club sells players.
Chelsea sell players because they don't want them anymore.
Liverpool sell players because players don't want to stay there. They're a selling club. It doesn't matter what reason a club is a selling club. I'm not taking out Liverpool.
Yeah,
I'm just giving you an example of clubs who sell players.
Oh, what about Manchester United?
Arsenal have to sell players who don't want to stay there. Of course they do.
They don't have to sell anyone.
Of course they do.
See, my definition is a much more educated one.
No, it's not.
You are a selling club if you have to sell players in order to continue to keep your head above the water.
No.
That's what Everton is.
No, you're a selling club if you sell players. It's as simple as that, Mike. And you to try and convolute it to suit your ridiculous, narrow-minded and ignorant view of football is something I will not tolerate, and I will not be silent about it.
Well, you won't be silent about anything, sadly. Manchester United bought players to the value of £148 million last year, net.
Where did that get them?
Well, it got them in fourth position.
Yeah, OK.
If they hadn't done that, they wouldn't have got fourth.
Yeah, well, maybe not.
But the point is, right, that bit proves, one, that you can't buy the title, first of all. Look at this great goal by Eden Hazard.
Good God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Everton can't afford him.
Well, of course they can't, because Everton
don't have a selling club.
We don't have a billionaire Russian oligarch who sloshes money around like a drunken sailor.
There's no need to sound so upset about it.
Therefore, waters down and dilutes any previous achievements that the club have ever had, because it wasn't got through blood, sweat and tears of generations of effort.
So you're saying Chelsea bought the Premier League? It
was a magic wand. It's magic wand money.
But
That's what I call it.
But they didn't buy it last year, did they?
Manchester City and Chelsea have magic wand money, OK? Because Everton don't. You think that they should be subject to your ridiculous criticism.
I'm just saying you can't describe every single team in the Premier League in the same way. It's nonsensical. It's idiotic.
I'm not describing. I don't describe every single team in the Premier League in the same way.
You've just said that Chelsea and Everton are both selling clubs.
I've said every club is a selling club, you idiot. And if you sell players, you are a selling club.
Yeah.
If you sell something, you're selling
right.
it. Doesn't matter why you're selling it, you're selling it.
Right.
And every club
sells
sells
So if you sell
players.
a house to somebody, you're an estate agent, are you?
No, of course you're not. But what are we talking about estate agents for?
Because I'm trying to point out the idiocy of your position.
No. That's an idiotic reference and an analogy.
If you sell a car to somebody, you're running a car dealership.
I think you've gone suddenly thicker over the last 24 hours.
Yeah,
because none of your
of
your debating strategy is making any sense whatsoever.
Have you seen the time?
The audience think that you're a jerk.
Yeah, well, that's why they voted for me to win Winners and Losers, and why it's now 11-4, and you're never going to catch me now before the end of the current off-season. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. A lot of text to read out to you. You can text us, of course, on 81089. You can email us via the website as well. Jason's a Liverpool fan. He says, I just feel the need to throw this one in the mix. Only Chelsea or Manchester City will win the title next season. Arsenal and Man United aren't good enough to win the league.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I
agree with that.
I think you may well be right.
Yeah.
Keith says, Mike, the Sun newspaper advertising a zip wire ride from Bournemouth Pier this week. Would this represent a serious enough challenge for Porky?
Yes.
Well, we discussed the zip wire thing, and I think we sort of rejected it out of hand.
Well, the zip wire thing is too easy. Anybody can do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was going to jump off the pier because nobody else had done that, but the authorities have stopped me. However, I can reveal exclusively, I am working on another demonstration of contrition for saying that I thought Bournemouth would never make the Premier League and that they'd fall away. And that will be before the Everton game at Bournemouth, which is in the first half of the season before Christmas.
Oh, OK. Well, because there have been a few... I haven't been wanting to bring it up, you see, because, I mean, I know that you've been busy trying to organise something, but but a lot of people have been on Twitter recently just asking the question about what you're going to be doing.
I can assure you that I am aware of my responsibilities. I've not put it on the back burner. But the authorities, I have been pursuing the authorities to try and get the permission to jump off Bournemouth Pier, but it's impossible.
Yeah.
Insurance-wise, regulation-wise, all sorts of reasons, for health and safety reasons, I can't do it. But don't worry, I've got another plan which will excite everybody. Yeah. Now, I want to talk to you about this line, please.
Well, I've got a couple more texts to read out, but I'll save them. No, I'll save them. You get on with that, and I'll because a couple of them about Everton as well. So I don't want to get you annoyed.
No, that's okay. Don't worry. No, it's okay. Go on. All
right. Well, this one is from Michael, who's in Liverpool. He says, it saddens me to admit, but Everton are a club going nowhere. Archaic stadium with no major improvements for years, which is a disgrace in itself. A board which won't spend a penny, it'll put a penny in rather, including the Spurs fan Robert Earl and the mute John Woods. Currently second from bottom in the transfer spending table, with cover needed for the centre-back position should Stones or Jagielka get injured.
But we're looking at the Celtic centre-half, aren't we?
And weak cover up front should Lukaku miss games. And he calls himself a fed-up Evertonian. Yeah,
well, OK, we're all fed up, but you can't spend money you haven't got. It's as simple as that. And thank God we have a custodian at Everton, who refuses to take us down, and I keep saying this, the Leeds, the Portsmouth, the Nottingham Forest route. And now I know, I'll get all the Everton fans going and saying, oh, you settle for, just being an average club. No, I'll settle for being a Premiership club rather than dropping into the third tier of English football, which happens to clubs when they just completely lose control of their financial base.
Yeah.
But that's another story. Right, OK.
Now, tell us about this story on the front page.
Well, it's a terrible story. This is a story.
First time I have to say I can remember that a lion has been on the front page of almost all of the national newspapers.
Yeah, it's terrible. The lion is called Cecil.
Yeah.
And I think the lion's 13 years old, from what I remember.
Well, he's dead now, isn't he?
Well, he is dead now. And the point is, this lion became famous, and it used to stalk the forests and the jungles of Zimbabwe.
The forests?
Well, the jungles of Zimbabwe. Now, apparently, according to the story, but I'm not sure how much of this we're going to be able to check out, an American dentist from Minnesota goes over there and pays £35,000 to be taken out, by like a forest stalker or something like that.
Rangers.
Rangers, that's right, and kills this lion, which incidentally has just fathered 6 cubs, who now will all be slaughtered by other lions because they are defenceless against...
because they're not in a pride.
They're not in a pride and all that kind of stuff.
You might have heard David Spencer saying that the dentist in question has come out and said that he's horrified by what's happened, and he thought that what he was doing was entirely legal. So he's not horrified about the idea that he killed a lion.
Yeah.
He's horrified by the fact that this might have actually been an illegal act.
Well, what's he saying? That he was lured into some sort of corrupt way of killing a lion, but he still killed a lion?
Well, there are places where you can go in Africa and shoot wildlife, and I think the problem with this...
Well, there shouldn't be.
Well, there shouldn't be, but the problem is that in this particular case, he thought he was being taken on some trip which was entirely proper, which was entirely sanctioned, for which there were licences issued and all of that.
Yeah.
And he's now discovered that he's going to become the pariah of the world because it was him who ordered the killing.
This is...
I don't think he even shot it himself, did he?
I'm not sure. It's a disgusting story. The lion who has 6 cubs was found the next day by hunters who finished him with a rifle before beheading and skinning him. This is Cecil. Cecil, a 13-year-old game park attraction, lay injured in agony overnight after American father of 2, Walter Palmer, shot him with a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Why would you shoot a lion with a bow and arrow?
Well, why would you shoot a lion, period?
Yeah, exactly.
With anything.
So anyway, the trackers, trusting Cecil, who enjoyed being around humans, was callously lured from the Hwange National Park in Zimbabwe before he was shot by Palmer, who was posed grinning with other trophies, including elk, leopard, rhino and bison. Apparently, this revolting man, this Minnesota dentist, has killed 43 animals.
Well, you know what they have in America, where they have those awful places, some of them are in Texas, because they've got so many big ranches, and people actually import these exotic animals and invite people down to shoot them, because they don't want to bother going all the way to Africa. So they actually import the animals and then they have a sort of shooting spree of them in their own country.
It's just unbelievable. Yeah. I honest to God think it is unbelievable. I just don't know how this can be allowed. This man should be locked up for all sorts of reasons. He should be locked up for cruelty. He should be locked up for trying to deprive the earth of its natural assets, which are wild animals. It's a disgusting and despicable story. And how he killed the lion, when it says with a bow and arrow, you're not talking here about, Robin Hood bow and arrow. Yeah. You're talking about a highly...
Like one of those Rambo bow and arrows.
Yeah, even more than that. Like almost...
Well, he used to have those ones with the exploding...
Yeah, exactly.
Thing at the
end that's right, like an electronic bow and arrow. It's disgusting, this. Disgusting story.
Well, it says here in the Mirror, Mr. Palmer is thought to have hunted in Zimbabwe before, and he pleaded guilty in 2008 to making a false statement to US federal wildlife officials over the slaying of a black bear during a guided hunt in Wisconsin. He was given a year's probation and fine. He's now in hiding and being hunted by Zimbabwe police who want to charge him with poaching, because that's what's apparently happened. They lured this lion away from a national park.
That's right.
Which
and
is
then
where
shot him outside as well.
And they brought food and lured him out. And as some of the wildlife people are saying, he would have had to get very, very close to the lion in order to shoot it with a bow and arrow. So it is a pretty awful story.
It's a disgusting story. There's pictures of him here with a dead rhinoceros, a dead elk, a dead bison, the dead lion and a dead leopard.
Yeah.
He must be quite a wealthy dentist and a successful one, because apparently
there's a lot of money in dentistry, isn't there?
Well, there's in America, yeah. He pays $35,000 for shooting the lion, $13,000 for shooting the leopard, $13,000 for shooting the rhino. It's a disgusting story.
You do wonder what sort of people could actually
get their
jollies doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, I tell you, these magnificent animals which are dying. I know I've said in the past, why do we all get so excited about the fact that the white rhino is near extinction? Well, all I mean is that it's not the world's biggest problem when you've got starvation, when you've got the movement of peoples in immigration crises and all this kind of stuff, and you've got to try and, help all these displaced people and all that kind of stuff. That's all I'm saying. But to then just callously go around shooting these wonderful, beautiful creatures is so disgusting.
I don't think that helps the matters any. Well, you may not think the guy is a very nice individual, but you don't want to wish anybody dead. I think
I hope he comes under so much pressure that's what I mean, that I hope it eventually gets to him and wears him down and he ends up in his grave. And I also hope that he now feels fear, now that his disgusting behaviour...
Well, he's in hiding, apparently.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's now been revealed.
He's not going to be doing any dentistry for a while.
No, I hope he fears retribution from right-thinking human beings who would like to subject him to the sort of terror that he subjects animals to.
Well,
really,
we shall see. I don't want to wish any ill on anybody, really. But
why? Why don't you want to wish any ill on this guy?
Because I don't think that's the way to proceed. I mean, that's not what civilised society does.
Well, I'm not as forgiving as you are.
No, I know you're not. No. But you are, of course, Christian.
Yeah,
so
I am a
forgiveness
Christian.
is part of the Christian ethic.
What does the Bible say? An eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Okay?
Yeah, well, it says a lot of things.
Do you know what? I'd like.
It says a lot of things. It's quite contradictory in many areas.
Do you know what I'd like to see happen to that dentist? Right?
No, I don't want to hear that.
No, I'm going to tell you.
No, I don't want to hear
remember
it.
Marathon Man?
None of it's
remember
horrible.
Marathon Man?
No, I do remember.
I'd like him tied up in a dentist's chair, and then I want, like Laurence Olivier, to take a drill and get it onto a fresh nerve. Okay, yeah, I think that's what he deserves.
I think that's a very nasty idea.
It is. Completely. It is. I agree, but he's a very nasty man.
Now, here's this from Krasnet, who sent this to the Two Mics. He says, I'm worried that tonight's show could end up in fisticuffs. Porky's been particularly obnoxious and pedantic.
What?
Jason says RFK Stadium was home to DC United of MLS. The Redskins played there until 1996 when they moved to the FedEx in Maryland.
Exactly.
Ian says, Porky, can you pay for my Sky with the money in your wardrobe, and I will always vote for you in winners and losers.
What do you mean the money in my wardrobe?
Well, I don't know. Have you got money in your wardrobe?
No.
I don't think he means your wardrobe. I think he means your spare room.
Does he?
Or maybe a locked room.
Well, I haven't got a spare room or a locked room, so, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
No, I'm not quite sure what all that means. Now, listen, talking about animals,
we
of
haven't got
course...
any more time. We haven't got any more time. Look at the time.
Oh, well, you see...
the time you've been ranting on with your poisonous bile for such a long time.
There's important things I need to
talk
to you
about.
about.
Well, I've got important things to say to you as well. But however, they will all be coming up next on Talk Sport. Remember this song?
Who's that then?
Bow Wow Wow was the name of the band.
Bow Wow Wow, a strange old name for a group, eh?
Yeah, they were created by Malcolm McLaren.
Oh, I see.
One of the bands that he did after the Sex Pistols.
Oh, I see. So probably lasted, about 18 months or something, if that?
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, I had that album.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, you actually had that song?
Yeah, I had the song, and it was Annabella Lewin.
My God.
Who was the sort of the singer of it.
Yeah, now listen, you know why we're playing that? Because we talked about...
we're talking about the lion.
The lion, yeah, which is a horrible story. But listen, much closer to home, did you know that the Forest of Dean, which is in Gloucestershire, beautiful part of the country, is rapidly becoming uninhabitable to human beings because there are now over 1,000 wild boar roaming around there, and they're very dangerous.
I'm not sure if I've ever been...
they're very dangerous.
For any length of time to a place called the Forest of Dean. I mean, I know where it is, but I don't think I've ever walked through it or anything.
Well, Gloucester is a really sort of rough town, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, although it's on the edge of the Cotswolds and all that kind of stuff, and you think, it's in Gloucestershire. No, it's not. Gloucester is a rough old town. And I don't mean that disparagingly to the people of Gloucester.
Yeah, we don't upset the people of Gloucester.
No, but it's, it is it's a working town.
It's quite a rough town, yeah.
It is quite a rough town, and people there are hard-living people and all that kind of stuff. So, you think of that as being on the edge of the Forest of Dean, but there's 1,000 there now which have grown from just half a dozen.
Why are there so many wild boars there then?
Well, what happened was in about year 2000 or 2001 or something, there was a great spell of people having exotic animals and all this kind of stuff, and a farmer who had taken on a herd of wild boar to try and make them commercially viable.
Right.
You know, some people have tried it with bison and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
you know
because
what I mean?
Borough Market, the place that you're constantly kind of ridiculing me for going to.
Yes.
I mean, there you can buy all manner of like wild boar sort of delights. You know, you can buy wild boar mince, you can buy wild boar burgers, you can buy wild boar sausages. They're lovely, actually. Very good.
All right. Well, that's
very
fine.
good to eat.
But anyway, this farmer, he couldn't make them work. He couldn't find nobody to buy them. He didn't want to slaughter them, so he simply took them to the Forest of Dean, released them into the forest, thinking, well, they'll just die out. You see what I mean?
Right.
They didn't. They went from a herd of between 50 and 60, probably about 55, I suppose, to now over 1,000. And
so because they're just kind of roaming free, presumably.
Yes, that's right. But they can get very aggressive.
Yeah, they can run at you, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And they've got horns, some of them.
Well, they've got tusks, haven't they?
Tusks, that's right.
No,
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
A wild boar with horns would be really worrying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but
like anyway,
something from the island of Dr. Moreau.
Yes, that's true. Now their number has increased.
Why are you so worried about this?
Well, because if it could spread all over the country.
Well,
that's
you think
why.
wild boars are going to start running wild in Britain?
Yeah, I
Is
do.
that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I do. I do, don't you?
No.
I mean, have you never seen a deer run across the road in front of your car?
Not in this country.
I
no.
have. I definitely have.
I've seen lots of deer running wild in Scotland.
Yeah, and I've seen them running wild in Connecticut, you know, in America.
Yeah,
and all that kind of stuff.
I've seen them in America. You asked me in this country. In this country, I haven't seen
Well,
them.
I have.
No.
I have.
No, I haven't.
I have.
But there are deer in Richmond Park.
Of course there are. Lots of them. And Bushy Park and places like that, right? But what I'm saying is that this now could spread because some expert has said, look, the Forest of Dean isn't big enough for this herd of wild boar anymore. They're going to have to find another habitat.
And are they do they live together, these animals, then? Do they live like in a community, or are they kind of lone creatures?
No, like any sort of herd, they're pack animals, you know what I mean?
Are they?
So there's groups of like 6 or 10
Because I always
of them
thought
or something
wild
like
boars
that.
were kind of sort of lone individual types.
Sorry?
I thought they were kind of loners, wild boars.
Well, some of them are.
Yeah.
Some of them are. But anyway, look, the reason why it's so alarming is that although I said it's grown from a number of 50 or 60 in 2004 to 1,000 now, that's not the real story. The real story is that a survey found out that in 2013, so that's 18 months ago, right, there were 535.
Right.
That figure went up to 819 by spring of last year.
Right. So presumably they've mated and created more wild boars.
Yeah, that's spring of last year.
Yeah.
And 1 year on, they're now 1,018. So they're increasing at the rate of nearly 2,000 a year now.
But are these the kind of wild boars that are occasionally slaughtered for food? Or are they not?
Yes, they are. Yeah, they can be, yeah. But the problem is they're now starting to run onto roads, and there have been accounts now of road accidents happening from wild boar running onto roads in panic or just not knowing where they are and causing accidents.
So what do you want to do about it?
Well, you've got to cull them.
So you want to shoot them?
You're going to have to, I'm afraid,
So after telling us all about what a horrible person this guy is who killed the lion, you want to import somebody like him to kill all the wild boar?
Listen, I've got
There does seem to be a bit of hypocrisy.
Hang on. I've got a quote here from a guy called Ian Harvey.
Who's he?
And he's Chief Wildlife Ranger for the Forestry Commission. Look after forests in this country.
Yeah.
He says the population has continued to grow. Now culling has become essential. The boars will eat anything and everything. And their increased numbers are being seen on the roads too.
Yeah.
He said since April there have been 49 collisions involving boars on forest roads, and that's just the ones we know about.
Yeah.
They have overtaken deer in that respect. They have no natural predator. Without intervention, their numbers will grow. We want a stable boar population living in harmony with the surrounding environment. They're out of control.
Yeah.
And when things are out of control, you've got to control them. Now, I don't want animals to be hurt, and I don't want animals to be slaughtered.
You just said you want them to be a cull.
They're going to have to be. Because if you don't, I'm telling you, in 50 years' time, the whole of this country will be populated by wild boar.
Well, maybe what we should do is just eat more of them.
You can't say it's rubbish.
Yeah, of course it is.
Look,
well, when has this happened in the past that you can point to me a case whereby, because there was no cull, obviously there was a massive problem, and they've taken over the country?
I can't, because this is a unique...
never happened.
No, it's a unique danger. It's a unique danger with a boar.
Right.
Now, listen...
Well, maybe you should start eating more wild boar.
Don't be ridiculous.
Why not?
Listen to my maths. 2,000 increase last year.
Yeah.
500 increase the year before. That 2,000 will become 4,000 next year.
Yeah.
That will become 10,000 the year after. Not numbers, but increase.
Yeah.
That increase will become 20,000 the year after that.
Right.
At this rate, by 2020, we could have literally 100,000 boar. Now, 100,000 boar can't live in the Forest of Dean.
No.
but it's not big enough.
Right.
So they'll start moving.
Well, that's what I'm saying. People need to eat them then.
Well, I mean...
because at the moment, wild boar is seen very much as a speciality.
I don't know if they're edible, are they?
Well, of course they are. I've just told you, wild boar sausages are fantastic.
Yeah, but wild boar...
I use wild boar sausages in a Mallorcan stew that I make.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
God. But those,
really nice.
the wild boar that
Quite
you're
spicy.
eating and you buy at Borough Market will presumably be reared on wild boar farms.
Well,
they won't be wandering around the forest.
Well, that's what I was asking you about.
Eating all sorts of, foliage and acorns. Foliage, and acorns and all that kind of stuff.
What's wrong with eating acorns?
Eh?
What's wrong with eating acorns?
Well, I don't know, they're good for you.
Well,
acorns.
If you're a boar, then they're probably okay for you. But even if they're not good for you, then that would be good for you, because then the boars would die from eating too many acorns.
Yeah, but it might not produce sort of, good meat and that kind of stuff. Now, listen, talking about all this, taking well of this, guys, I have great interest in the natural habitat in which we live.
Yeah.
And you live sort of on the edge of a forest, don't you, down in Sussex, right? Or a wood
well, there
or
are
something.
lots of woods around there, yeah.
Didn't you tell me you'd go out picking mushrooms?
No, I have done in the past. And in fact, when I was living in Wiltshire,
my
wife at the time bought me a mushroom picking book, which made sure that, because
you still got it.
I'm not sure, actually. I haven't seen it for a while. I think I might still have it.
Yeah.
But the thing about picking mushrooms is you've got to be very careful, because obviously there are some poisonous mushrooms out there, like deadly nightshade and that kind of thing. And if you were to eat those, you would die.
Right.
So you've got to be very careful, and you've got to know what you're picking.
Well, let me tell you, you know where the New Forest is?
Yeah.
I know where the New Forest is, because when I leave...
It's not a forest there, really, is there?
Well, I was about to say to you, when I leave my place in Gosport and I drive to the families in Bournemouth, I go along the M27, then the A27. The A27 goes up and over the New Forest.
Yeah.
Now, the only problem with the New Forest is...
It's not a forest at all.
Well, forests usually have trees, and the New Forest hasn't got any trees.
That's what I mean. It's like moorland, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing wrong with the New Forest. It hasn't got any trees, and therefore, I don't know. But it's where...
Didn't Henry VIII cut all the trees down?
No. They never had any trees. Never planted any trees. They called it the New Forest because...
No, I think there was a forest there at one point.
No, there wasn't. Because
where's the old forest, anyway?
All forests are old forests. The New Forest was a newly planted forest because the king wanted to go there and go hunting.
So where are the trees, then?
Sorry?
So where are the trees?
There aren't any trees.
Well, hang on. You just said that they planted trees there.
Well, what he did is he planted a few trees at the top of a hill and then calls the rest of it the forest. But there weren't any trees in... Well, I don't know why he did it.
Are you sure about that?
I'm sure about it. And
I
also...
have to check this out.
Also, one of the kings who preceded Henry VIII was killed in a hunting accident in the New Forest.
Oh, yeah.
So then they banned all hunting in the New Forest. So then the animal population expanded and started eating anything that was there anyway at all the foliage. You see what I mean?
Right.
But anyway, the reason I'm talking to you about the New Forest is the New Forest is being stripped of all its edible fungi, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's because people are going there and picking mushrooms, and that's because apparently there's been a programme on recently in which they explain how you can live off the land with fungi, and the most popular fungi in the country in the New Forest.
Yeah, right.
Did you know that?
Well, no, I didn't know that, no. But, I mean, I don't feel as if I'm any better off now that you've told me.
It's celebrity foragers...
celebrity foragers?
Yes, are encouraging people to pick all they can and to eat on wild food forays, mostly in the New Forest.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
What do you think about that?
Well, that's good, isn't it? Because if people eat off the land, then so much the better, because then you can actually figure out how to grow things, how to use things like that. You don't have to go to the supermarket for everything.
Yeah.
Says here the New Forest was created by William I in 1079 as a royal forest for the royal hunt.
That's right. He was the son of William the Conqueror.
Yeah.
You didn't know that, did you?
I didn't know
that.
Yeah,
well, I think he was killed in the hunting accident.
Yeah.
Now, what I was going to say was...
You've been reading some right load of old cobblers this week, haven't you?
No, I'm very worried.
So you're on about wild boars
I'm worried
in
about
the Forest of Dean.
Yes.
And you're worried about mushrooms in the New Forest with no trees.
I am. A woman called Mrs. Cadbury.
Mrs. Cadbury?
Yeah, same name as...
Is this like some children's story?
No, she's from Brockenhurst.
Is she?
Which is nearby.
Really?
In the New Forest.
Right.
And she said, and she's a member of the British Mycological Society.
Mycological?
Yeah, that's all about...
the two mycological societies.
No, the British Mycological Society, which looks after fungi. And she says that foraging...
time, by the way.
Hang on a second, this is important. Foraging courses have become so popular, they are stripping the forest of fungi. We can go to areas where we know fungi of all sorts grow, and you... What? Why are you laughing?
Because I don't know what you're going on about.
Well, you know what I'm going on about.
Of this?
The whole country's being stripped of fungi, and it's causing a huge problem.
Sorry.
I don't know why I bother.
Sounded a bit like a wild boar. By the way,
I just don't know why I bother.
William I was William the Conqueror, so he wasn't the son of William the Conqueror at all.
I don't know why I bother, honestly.
I don't know why you bother either. Anyway, it's fascinating stuff. Nowhere else in the world of radio can you hear about the wild boar scare, which is going on in the Forest of Dean. And if you're anywhere near the New Forest, perhaps you let us know what the mushrooms are like.
Well, don't pick the mushrooms, because we've stripped the forest of mushrooms. It's not good. The forest will die without its mushrooms.
All trees. This is Talk Sport.
Incredible scenes here in central London. A massive gorilla has escaped and is running riot in Parliament Square. It must be 30 foot tall, and it's now climbing up Big Ben. It's absolutely huge.
That giant ape might be big, but it's not as big as Talk Sport's massive new football season. Hear full match commentaries throughout the season from the Barclays Premier League, the Champions League, the FA Cup, the League Cup, and the Europa League. Starts this Sunday with kick-by-kick commentary of the Community Shield on Talk Sport.
Oh, this is amazing! There's a monkey on Big Ben!
Never mind that. I've got a wee monkey on the 315 at Newmarket.
Too much. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. You get it on iTunes. You can get it on various Android devices as well. Right now, we're going to talk about a subject that we talk about an awful lot, actually, travelling by aeroplane. Porky, of course, is a man who never travels anywhere other than business class or first class. And I'm sure you've got a few airline stories to tell us. We're going to talk to a woman now by the name of Sean Kathleen, who's a former air hostess herself. She's got some outrageous passenger stories because she started up a movement, really, for want of a better word, which is called passenger shaming. Right. All the terrible things that airline passengers do. Because, you know, there was a time when you and I used to fly when it was a real privilege to fly in an aeroplane. Now it's like getting on a bus, really, isn't it? Let's talk to Sean Kathleen and find out what it's all about. Sean Kathleen, a very good morning to you.
Hello, best day ever. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're very well indeed.
Thank you
so much for joining us. We saw this story last week, actually, in one of the papers here about how cabin crew sort of been swapping horror stories and talk about their lives as members of air crew. You were a former air hostess yourself. What gave you the idea to start up this whole kind of passenger shaming thing?
I started a website called Rants of a Sassy Stew as a stewardess and about 7 years ago. And it was just me ranting and writing about, you know, all of these horrific stories, you know, obviously the poor behaviors of passengers. And then it escalated to photographs, you know, in the last couple of years. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and make a sister site of just photographs, and it went viral and crazy, and all the passengers are loving it. It's awesome.
It's excellent, Sean Kathleen. The problem is that we learn from it some of the methods of revenge which cabin crew take on passengers, and now we all go around wondering whether we ourselves have ever been a victim of an act of revenge when we've had a glass of wine too much and said the wrong thing to a member of the cabin crew.
Oh, we don't speak about revenge, honestly. In my 7 years, I never did anything vengeful per se. I mean, honestly, the worst thing that I would do would be, like, say if somebody wanted a soda, I would maybe just fill the glass completely with ice and then give them soda, so it's literally like 2 sips. So it's literally 2 sips. But other than that, like, I mean, no one that I've ever worked with has done anything horrific. So
it is. I mean, it is very different now, isn't it? Because I mean, Mike and I have been travelling on planes since I guess the sort of late 70s, I guess you might say. And in those days, you get upgrade to business class or an upgrade to first class, and you could have a wonderful time. Nowadays, you know, they're very kind of, shall we say, parsimonious with the alcohol. And I've been told on more than one occasion that, you know, they think that I shouldn't have any more to drink on a plane.
Disgraceful.
Which is not because I've been out over the top or anything, just because they've now got much stricter rules. And obviously, since all the terrorism stuff started, I mean, it's a much tougher job now, I think.
It's absolutely much more difficult. I only flew post 9/11. I flew quite a bit as a passenger, you know, pre 9/11, and so I got to enjoy all the fun things that you guys did as well. But yeah, now it's a completely different thing. I mean, in the United States, they classify flight attendants as first responders. Right. So, you know, it's more of a safety aspect. You know, you're learning through, you know, an extensive training program. You know, it's firefighting, it's security, it's, you know, handcuffing people, dealing with belligerent drunks. it's extensive.
Tell me...
I thought you were going to tell us a story about a belligerent drunk on a plane.
No, I don't know any belligerent drunks on planes. I tell you what, I was once lucky to get to Chicago because I had so much to drink on the plane there. I didn't think they'd let me in when I got to Chicago. No, seriously.
What, from here?
Yeah, from London. Yeah, from London. Yeah. And I don't know how they let me in. But, Sean Kathleen, what I was going to say to you was, how much do the cabin crew have to depend on the goodwill of the majority of passengers on an aeroplane to be able to put down and control the minority who are trying to cause trouble?
We do depend on them. We call them able-bodied passengers, or ABPs.
Yeah.
We do seek them out once while boarding, and during the flight itself. And
you actually select passengers who you think look like credible, sensible human beings who would help in an emergency.
Well, that wouldn't be you, would it?
Absolutely.
No, it wouldn't be me. No, definitely not. No.
Not you. No.
Do you also, as you're seeing? I mean, I know that. I mean, I used to know a couple of stewardesses who worked for TWA. There's pretty much dates me, right? Yeah. And they used to work on the overnight New York Tel Aviv flight, and they always wanted to be in first class because they said you get a much better class of future husband, and they were always kind of on the lookout for some richer multi-millionaire to marry. I mean, do you have to kind of? I mean, I know there's a pecking order with economy and business and first, but do you actually watch people as they come on and think, that guy's going to be a nightmare, or that family's going to be a nightmare, or whatever?
Yes, every single time. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you can look. One of the biggest lessons learned for me with this position, and keep in mind, I'm a former police officer as well,
right.
Was trust your intuition. And I swear it was dead on like 99% of the time.
Right.
I would have, people come on, and I knew it. I knew there was going to be a problem. I remember one instance where I told the captain, I said, hey, we're ready for takeoff. This is after everything happened. I said, if anything happens, it's the guy in 1D.
Yeah.
Cut to 30 minutes later, he was smoking crack in the lavatory and caught his hair on fire.
Oh, yeah. That
wasn't Richard Pryor, was it?
Probably. Sean, isn't the biggest problem you have the arrogance of the people who bring on suitcases the size of a wardrobe and expect to be able to shove them into the overhead locker? I mean, why haven't they clamped down on that over the years?
They need to. It needs to be policed much stronger than it is, and my understanding is that is coming in the near future. So absolutely, that stuff needs policed immediately. And like you mentioned, as far as the passengers, there's that sense of entitlement too. It's so strong.
Exactly.
And it's so, they think, oh, I spent X amount of dollars, or pounds on this flight. So guess what? I get to do whatever I want. I'm going to treat this aircraft like it's my living room.
And because it's so much more expensive now, certainly like intercontinental flying, transatlantic flying has become so much more expensive. And I mean, some of the pictures that I've seen on I don't know if it's your website, but the ones that were reproduced in the papers where there's just rubbish everywhere, where there's people sleeping in strange places, people taking their trousers off and going to sleep. I mean, there is a sense, and I was saying this to Mike earlier, when you land after a long transatlantic flight, particularly if it's an overnight one, it can be pretty horrendous when you wake up and see the kind of detritus around you.
It is true.
It's awful. And I did something for the Mail maybe a week ago, and then of course on the passenger shaming on the Facebook page and the Instagram account, you see grown men like in their 60s, and they're without shirts. They have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's disgusting.
Now, Sean, last question, please. And this is the one that
the last question.
No, because this is the one that might take a little time to answer.
Is her name, anyway.
Sean
Kathleen.
I know Sean Kathleen's a bit of a mouthful, so I'll just shorten it to Sean.
Okay.
Sean Kathleen, what I was going to say was...
Sorry about this, Sean Kathleen.
Can you tell me, please, the level of and the regularity of romances between the captain and the female cabin crew? Because I once thought about being a pilot because I thought it'd be a great way to access...
He was too short, I'm afraid, Sean
Hang on. hang on. It was my eyesight, actually. A great way to access a lot of very pretty-looking ladies dressed up in very smart uniforms.
It's a bit sexist, this, isn't it?
No, and flying all over the world to exotic locations. Now, was I right in that?
Absolutely, it happens.
Yeah.
However, I will say this, just like any other work environment, where coworkers and colleagues are hooking up, it's pretty much the same. It's not like you see in the movies, it's all married captains, that are cheating. It's not necessarily like that, but absolutely crew members are getting together, and you're with each other, 24 hours a day, for 4, 5, 6, however many days at a time. Absolutely, it happens.
And you're all staying in the same hotel.
It's not just the pilot.
Oh, and you
Yeah.
Usually stay in a luxury hotel, and sometimes you could be there for 3 days, couldn't you?
You've given a lot of thought to this, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, because you may be on a flight from, say, Los Angeles to Tokyo or something like that, and then the plane has to stay on the ground for 2 days, turn it around, bring it back.
You need to do something for a few days. What are you going to do?
Well, exactly.
A bit of Rogerisation.
You can only see Tokyo so much, right?
I totally agree, yeah. It sounds good. I missed my vocation there. My vocation.
You are pathetic, aren't you?
I'm not pathetic.
You are pathetic.
You know what? You could be a flight attendant and do the same thing.
Yeah,
Look
that'd
at
be
all
great.
The women you would get.
You wouldn't be able to reach the overhead compartments, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, that's good advice. That's good advice, Sean Kathleen, because, of course, there's no age discrimination these days, so I could change career, couldn't I?
No, there's still height discrimination, though.
And
you've got to look at least partly human to get a job there.
Excuse me, Sean Kathleen just said, even if I was short, there is no height discrimination, OK? You got that?
Well, Sean Kathleen, I mean, Mike Parry actually has never been married, so even though he's now a man in advanced,
I've heard this.
In advanced years, I mean,
me.
if you're ever in London, would you consider going out for a drink with him?
Oh, absolutely, of course.
Sean Kathleen,
I was already explained. Yeah, I was already told about this.
It'd be a pleasure. And just to let you know about Mike Gray, the guy on my left,
like lean ham.
Of course, he wouldn't get on board an aircraft as a member of a cabin crew because of fatness discrimination. Because he's so gross, he would need 2 of those little sort of flying seats that the cabin crew have to take.
They call them jump seats.
Yeah, that's right. When you're taking off in London.
Does he have to do the seatbelt extension thingy?
Oh, you'd need an extension to get around his belly. Yeah, you'd need the extension seatbelt.
Yeah.
And you can put Porky in one of those, you can put in one of those child's chairs, like the booster seats.
Absolutely.
Don't be ridiculous. The trouble with Mike is he wouldn't be allowed to walk up and down the plane because the plane would go down when he was at the front and it'd go up when he was at the back. It's as simple as that.
You don't really understand aerodynamics, do you?
He'd have to sit straight in the center.
Yeah,
exactly. That's right. Yeah.
Well, as a Sean Kathleen, I see he's now started calling you by the correct name, even though he thinks it's a bit of a mouthful. So he's obviously trying it on with you. But if you are ever here, do get in touch, and I'd be delighted to escort you to make sure that he doesn't get up to no good.
Yes. I would definitely want to have an escort.
That would be brilliant.
I think that would be wise. Yeah.
Good.
And wear flat shoes whenever you do.
Oh, good idea. Okay.
No. Wear stilettos, please. I prefer stilettos, honestly.
Sid the sexist strikes again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sean Kathleen, thank you very much. Did you want to tell us where your website can be found?
Sure. You know what? The best place to find me would be Passenger Shaming on Facebook. You can just type it in and it pops up.
Okay.
And also Passenger Shaming on Instagram. Between the two of them, we're almost at 1 million. It's crazy.
That's brilliant. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. Sean Kathleen, she doesn't want to give her last name out because she did used to be a genuine air hostess. She's also at Passenger Shame and at Sean Kathleen on Twitter. What a fascinating subject that is. We could have talked to her for a long time. I could see that you were trying to wheedle your way into her affections.
What do you mean?
But, I hope you don't mind me suggesting that you guys go for a drink if she's ever here.
Well, look, that's very sociable, and I'm a sociable individual. The trouble with you is, Mike, you see, because you have always looked upon women as a possible source
I'm not the one that said, wear stilettos, please.
Excuse me, as a possible source of sexual gratification.
Yeah.
And that's obvious from your track record in your broken marriage and all your broken...
it's 2-1 to Barcelona.
Liaisons and all that kind of stuff,
Did you see who scored the second goal?
Eh?
Did you see who scored the second goal for Barcelona?
No, who was it?
I think it was Sandro.
Sandro, OK, yeah.
But not the one that used to play for Spurs.
But don't tar me with your brush, that's all I'm trying to say.
Don't what?
Tar me with your brush.
I'm certainly not getting my brush anywhere near you.
You have literally the morals of an alley cat, honest to God, and I'm not going to be part of that grubby life that you lead.
No problem at all. Mike Parry, the man who, on the one hand, thinks it's a disgrace that a lion was killed, and in the same breath orders the culling of 1,000 wild boars. This is Talk Sport.
We're S-H-O-P-I-N-G. We're shopping.
This is Talk Sport, we are the two Mikes. There will be, of course, a podcast coming out a little bit later on. There's just been another goal. It's now 2-2. I think Chelsea just scored a penalty. Header from Cahill, but he got smacked in the face. He's now bleeding quite hard. And
quite profusely.
There's that Chelsea physiotherapist that comes on.
Female lady.
The female lady, yeah.
Well, exactly female physiotherapist. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
exactly right. Quite a few tweets have come in with regard to your chatting up there of
I didn't chat her up at all. You chatted her up for me.
Well, I was trying to help you out. Jennifer says, Porky smitten. Hashtag Sean Kathleen.
No.
Peter says that was a great chat, and between you and me, Mike Graham is actually slimmer than Mike Porky Parry.
Oh yeah, and how does he know that? He's met you, has he?
Well, anybody who's seen a picture of the two of us would know that.
Well, pictures lie. You look wider on pictures.
Well,
Everybody knows that.
In that case, take the word of people who come to the live shows who've always said, that you're a very strange shape, and I actually look quite normal. Joshua says, we have finally found Miss Porky Parry. Don't let yourself down and follow this drink up, please. And then he's got a little ring there. Here's one from CLC. Brill. So Mike Parry was going to be a pilot. Unfortunately, short, blind, fat men don't qualify to be pilots. Never mind.
What an amusing individual that person is.
He certainly is, yeah. And then Ronnie says, after that call, I've just booked my air host course.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, a bit like you, many people think it's a very glamorous life. I don't think it can be a particularly glamorous life these days.
I think it is. If you're the captain of a jumbo jet heading to the Bahamas and you've got 3 days there before you have to fly back, as Sean Kathleen said, well, you've got to do something in the 2.5 days in between, haven't you?
Well, you know what you'd be doing?
What?
You'd be just sitting at the bar.
Don't be ridiculous. Of course I wouldn't. I would socialise with the rest of the crew.
And I mean, now they have very much more strict...
the captain, of course, is the leader of the pack.
Yeah, but they also have much more strict regulations now on breath tests and all that for pilots. Remember, I do. About once a year now they lift somebody because they think he's been drinking the night before and he's not allowed to fly the plane.
I'll tell you quite honestly, I remember a case, of... now, a mate of mine, it was somebody in the airline business who told me about it.
Yeah.
And a British Airways jumbo went to somewhere very exotic. It was something like the Maldives or the
Mauritius,
Seychelles, Mauritius, the Seychelles, something like that. I didn't know such big planes went out that way, but apparently stopped off in India on the way or something like that. Okay, and they were there 3 days. And there is apparently a history of. Did I say British Airways plane?
Yeah,
I didn't mean to say that. I meant a jumbo. I don't know which airline it was.
Yeah.
And there is apparently within the industry a lot of socialising amongst the crew when they get there.
Yeah.
And what happened here was. A senior member of the flight crew, so that was like the captain or the
first officer,
something like that, got out of the bath in which he was cavorting with some female cabin crew, and stood on a glass which severed,
which was probably a champagne glass or something
like that, something like that, which severed a vein in his foot. I don't think you've got a jugular vein in your foot, have you?
Well, not a jugular vein, but you can certainly have a main arterial vein.
A main arterial vein.
Yeah.
And he very nearly bled to death, so much so that the blood ran through the floor of the hotel they were in, so it must have been like wooden floors or something like that,
The blood ran through the floor?
Ran through the floor and started dripping into the floor below.
Are you sure this is some horror film you were watching on a plane?
This is absolutely true.
I
this guy told me.
Story.
Right, well, I'm telling you, he told me the story. There was so much blood that the carpet, was drenched in it and all that kind of stuff. It was a huge incident, and the problem was that he wasn't able to fly the plane back. Right. So then they had another huge problem of having to fly a captain out and all that kind of stuff, and the guy nearly died and all that. And that was not a fairly typical incident of what happens when crews are in stayovers in exotic places, but it is something which all airlines are aware of, apparently. These things do happen.
No, they do. I mean, we all used to know, well, I certainly knew quite a lot of people who were in air crew for one reason or another.
Yeah.
And there were all sorts of partying going on, all sorts of horrendous stories surrounding Rogerisation and various other things that went
absolutely.
on. And it was a fairly glamorous lifestyle, but nowadays I just don't think it is so much. Because,
you say that, but I mean, how do we know?
Well, because there were days when, for example, I mean, we've just had a tweet from Jennifer who said that she remembers, in the old days getting on a plane and some of the passengers would be walking up and down smoking while the plane was taking off.
That's right.
I mean, it wasn't really, the safety thing wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
And there was a time when you flew transatlantic, you didn't have to worry about getting upgraded to business because the planes were half empty.
Yeah, that's right.
Now the planes are always absolutely chock full.
Is that because they cut the number of services?
Well, they've cut the number of services, so they fill the planes up, and sometimes now what they do is if the plane isn't full, they just cancel it.
Yeah.
And then they separate all the other passengers into different flights.
Is that right?
Because they don't want to fly it, half
That happened
empty.
to me once going to South Africa. We thought we'd go on a flight at 11 o'clock at night or something. They said, sorry, that flight's off. You're going on the next one at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, and that's probably just because it was 2 half-empty planes. But then, there's 3 hours before you get on. You have to fly 3 hours before you get there 3 hours before.
Exactly.
It takes 2 hours to get out of the airport. I mean, it's no longer a very glamorous thing to do.
Well, it still is if you travel business. You get in the business lounge and all that, and you're okay. Now, listen, I need to tell you about this because you're going to accuse me of being sexist, but it's not. This is a study, and it's written by a journalist I respect very much indeed, Melanie Reid from The Times.
Oh,
right?
Melanie Reid, yeah.
Yeah. Now, she found this out, and then she wrote about it in her column this week, and I think it's fascinating. It says, allow this lack of humour to grow and we will soon be combining medical manuals to eradicate even sexual dimorphism, OK? What she's saying is people are very, very sensitive about what they call, sexism these days. Everything can be interpreted as sexism.
Yeah, well, most of what you say can be interpreted as sexism.
No, it's not. It's just that you wind up the audience and try to get it. But she has revealed, she said, let me tell you about an obscure but fascinating example of a difference between a man and a woman.
Yeah.
And it's called the carrying angle.
OK.
If you let your arm...
Is this Melanie Reid saying this, or is it a different...
This is Melanie Reid telling us about a piece
study.
of research she found, OK? A study she found. She said, if you let your arm fall by your side, palm forward, your arm will not be straight. The lower arm will slant away from the upper arm at the elbow. Yeah. OK? Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Do you want to stand up and show me?
Stand up and show you what?
But your arm at the side of your body.
You want me to stand
please,
up?
Please, yeah. Right. So your arm is at the side of your body, that's right, yeah. And it'll not be straight. It's not straight, obviously, right, because it has to take in the curvature of your body. The lower arm will slant away from the upper arm. No, it's not. It's not. The lower arm does slant away from the upper arm. Now, can I tell you, at the elbow. Now, in women, the average angle is 13.6 degrees off straight.
Right.
While on a man... it is only 6.7 degrees off straight. You got it?
Has that to do with their hips?
It is. I'm about to say to you, women typically have narrower shoulders and wider hips, so the increased angle prevents their arms from hitting their sides as they walk, OK? And all this was explained to me by an ex-rugby playing physiotherapist who declared that nature had thus deemed women better suited and able to carry the shopping.
What?
Yeah.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, they could be better suited and able to do any number of things.
And hence he said this...
Carry the shopping?
Yes. And he said that led to the accuracy of the name of that particular condition. Mansplained.
Mansplained?
Mansplained, yeah.
Is that why when you carry shopping you're always banging into yourself?
Exactly. And although that sounds sexist,
it is, isn't it?
No, it's a physical.
Because, the physicality of a woman,
yes,
is generally thought to be designed in order for her to have wider hips in order to carry children.
Well, she's also
to become pregnant.
She also has narrower shoulders and wider hips. Therefore, the increased angle prevents their arms from hitting their sides as they walk. That means they have more space to have packages at the end of their arms without hitting their bodies.
Packages at the end of their arms.
Yes, which is shopping.
I think the silly season must be apologising. Melanie Reid's right about this.
No, it's not.
That's rubbish, isn't it?
It's not. It's please don't accuse me of being sexist or being anti-woman or anything like that. I'm saying that physiologically it will have developed, presumably, from cavemen, Stone Age man.
From when they went down to the Stone Age Tesco's and brought the shopping back?
No, you idiot. From when the hunter-gatherer went out and dragged the mammoth or something back to the cave. They chopped it up. The wild boar. And then the female member of the species of Neolithic man, or whatever he was called, would then have to carry
the New Forest.
Would have to carry the bits of the beast that were to be roasted and all that kind of stuff around with her, and that led to the development of the bodily form of man and woman.
Rubbish.
No, it's not rubbish.
Absolute rubbish. The women are in shape they are because they are designed to raise children, to have children, to carry children.
Well, I'm telling you, it also facilitates the ability to carry shopping more comfortably.
No, I think you've gone mad.
No.
I think Melanie Reid's gone mad.
No, I haven't.
The world's gone mad.
No, I haven't.
Is that the best thing you can find out in the papers today?
No, I didn't find that in the papers today. It's something which I became aware of because I think it's absolutely fascinating. I do get fascinated by these surveys, you know.
You're
absolutely
fascinated by it because you're a sexist. As
no,
simple
I'm
as
not.
that.
I'm not a sexist at all, and I resent that very much.
You asked Sean, what's her name, Kathleen, to wear stilettos, did you not?
I said, you said she should wear flat shoes.
Yeah.
All I said was I didn't ask her to wear stilettos. I said I think women, generally speaking, look better in stilettos.
Yeah, right.
It makes their legs look better. That's all.
That's not sexist at all, is it?
No.
Maybe you could ask her to carry a couple of bags for you while she's at it.
You're such an idiot, honestly.
This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mites. There will be a podcast coming out in a little while. Now, lots and lots of tweets and texts that we haven't read out that we should probably apply.
We must.
Here's one from Becky in New Zealand who's not very happy with you. Says, Porky's talking crap. Only difference that matters between men and women is that men have more privilege and are paid more. Hashtag Sid the Sexist.
Oh, well, no, I'm not Sid the Sexist, and that's not true anyway. Certainly in our business, broadcasting and whatever, women get terrifically...
remunerated?
Terrifically good opportunity to compete for all the same jobs that men do, and it's a good thing.
And quite right too.
Yeah.
Giles says, no, Mike Parry, surprisingly, you do not have a jugular vein in your foot. Tube. Mike Graham, I feel for you having to put up with this numpty.
Yeah, well, I mean, hang on. I didn't say I had a jugular vein. I said the equivalent of a jugular vein. Yeah. Mike Graham made it absolutely clear there is no jugular vein in the foot. But I can tell you that story, despite the fact that Mike Graham threw cold water on it because he wasn't aware of the story. So he always throws cold water on great stories that I bring to the party because he hasn't got me.
Right.
Simple as that.
Now, here's one from Karan who says, Mike Parry helped Ken for self-aggrandisement. How about a shout-out for Pav in Harrow? Apparently it's his birthday today.
Pav in Harrow?
Yeah.
And who is Pav in Harrow?
You know Pav in Harrow. He comes to our live shows quite a bit.
Oh, I know Pav. Yeah, Pav, is it your birthday today? How old is he?
Well, nobody says how old he is. You have to ask that.
Is that from Pav?
No, it's from one of his friends, obviously.
Oh, I see. OK, well, listen, Pav, happy birthday, pal. Well done. Keep coming to the shows, mate, and we appreciate your support.
Now, here's one from Giles who says, Mike Parry, complete and utter hypocrite, deride the lion killer and endorsed the slaughter of the boar. Plonker.
No, I've not done that at all.
Yes, you have.
No, I haven't. Don't you realise that if you don't have some sort of sensible culling policy, then those animals, the boars, like deers do, will turn upon each other. And then that will be a horrible...
that'll be all right, right? Then they won't be around to bother you so much.
No. It'll be a horrible, bloody, as in the sense of blood, type dust-up, and it'll be horrible. No, we can't have it.
And here's one from Abdul who says, wow, unbelievable, Porky. I never knew God took shopping that seriously. You should be willing to pay for the shopping.
No, don't be ridiculous. What I'm saying is the physiological development of man and woman has been different. It just so happens there's more space at the side of women's bodies when you're carrying bags. That's an observation from a physiology expert.
Oh, right,
God didn't actually create women to go shopping. There was no shopping around when Adam and Eve were at it. You know what I mean?
There wasn't, no. You just picked the apples off the tree.
Exactly.
And had to look out for the serpent.
Yeah.
Omar says this, loved your conversation on the Two Mites with Sean Kathleen. Perfect. I wasn't surprised by Crew stories of amour. It is human nature. And Jennifer says, when Porky says, I'm not being sexist, but cues the sexism.
No, honestly, one of these days I'm going to stop talking about relationships between men and women. If people keep accusing me of being a sexist, it's so unfair.
Well, in an ironical sort of way,
I'm trying to do
isn't it kind of ironical, though, as you say, that Melanie Reid was saying that people are accused of sexism all the time.
Yes.
And in fact, now you've been accused of sexism by actually highlighting the story.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel quite sorry for you.
Exactly.
Thank you very much indeed. How about this one from Matt, who texted into 81089. He says, hi, Mike, I couldn't fit this in a tweet like normal, and I thought I would share it with you. I always have the podcast on when I'm washing up or cooking or showering or bathing, and yesterday my wife came in saying, I'm sick of you listening to this every moment of every day, and it's making me miserable. Perhaps a new jingle for you could be the Two Mics causing divorces since 2015. Keep up the great work. It really is the best show on radio.
Well, that's good. Listen, talking about relationships, by the way, because I said to Sean Kathleen, didn't I? Do these great romances go on between the pilots and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
You know that story this week about all these 150,000 people who now nervous as hell because the fact that they've been on a dating website is about to be revealed. What was that called again?
Oh, yeah, I can't remember the name of it now.
somebody or something, was it? What was it called, the dating website?
Yeah, the dating website. Ashley Madison.
Ashley Madison, that's the one, right. And all I was thinking was that we are old enough to remember the days when you didn't actually date online or on anything to do with the computer.
Online.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, the idea, I want to find a girlfriend for the weekend. I want to find somebody to take out.
What do you mean you want to find a girlfriend for the weekend?
Yeah. So I'll go on to...
I've never said those words.
Hang on.
I've never said those words.
Just hear me out.
OK, calm down.
So I'll get onto my laptop, which of course didn't exist in our day, and I'll try and find a female who matches me, and all that kind of stuff, Right. Well, in my day, what you did is... Thursday
you just went down the Bongo Club, didn't you, or its equivalent?
Yeah, the equivalent, and it was the King's Disco in Chester. You got paid in a brown envelope on Thursday.
Yeah.
So every Thursday at about sort of 4:30, this lady came around with a trolley and handed out all these brown envelopes, right? And in it was stuffed a load of cash.
Yeah.
And I remember in my case, when I was first to report in the Chester Chronicle, I got exactly £21.
Right.
And
those were the days when the payroll department used to get robbed on payday because they had all this cash.
That's right.
It's quite archaic.
And armed robbers with shotguns would hang around and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And anyway, so that was wonderful. So, the feeling of opening that brown envelope and taking all that money out, it was usually like fivers or something like that, put it in your pocket. And, of course, at 5 o'clock, you headed straight for the pub. Yeah. Or 6 o'clock, whatever time you finished work, usually about 5:30. Right. And Thursday night was a huge night. So you'd stay in the pub for about 2.5 hours and then try and pick up a lady in the pub to take to the King's Disco, right?
On Thursday night?
On a Thursday night.
OK, so the club was open Thursday night?
Oh, Thursday was the biggest night, because in those days, everybody got paid on a Thursday.
I mean, funnily enough, even though that's probably no longer the case, I mean, as I drive into work some nights, Thursday night is a very busy night still.
It is.
In the City of London.
There's a pub in the cellar of the Old Vic Theatre called the Pit Bar, and I see the queues outside there some nights when I'm coming to start work here, and I agree with you, it's still a big night Thursday night. Yeah. I think people feel, we'll have a huge night Thursday, and then they've only got to struggle through Friday before it's the weekend or something like that, But anyway, so do the round of the pubs and see if there was anybody around who I could sort of, impress and take off to the King's Disco, where I could always walk to the front of the queue.
Yes, of course.
Because of my celebrity status as a reporter on the local paper.
Couldn't you just pick somebody up in the queue? As you were kind of walking towards the front?
Not really, because then, that looked a bit obvious, pulling them out of the queue and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. However, if you couldn't, you just went to the door, got in. Then, of course, you had the pick of all the ladies who came in.
Right.
And usually speaking, round about 11 or 12 o'clock, you'd think, OK, this is great, no problem at all. And you were sorted, OK. Yeah. That was a great Thursday night.
And would this be after being rebuffed a few times? Or?
Maybe. Now, the same thing would happen on Friday night, OK? But it would be, you'd find a different sort of. So
there's a different night, different girl.
Usually.
Well, if you took this girl home on Thursday night, wouldn't she then want you to take her out on Friday?
Well, you'd sort of disappear, because in those days there were no mobile phones, and if you gave her a wrong number, then she couldn't.
So
ring
you
you
give the wrong number out.
Usually.
Yeah.
Usually.
That's shocking behaviour.
Well, no, it was just to save any misunderstanding. You see what I mean? And so Friday night, same procedure. But what it meant is, you normally speaking woke up on Saturday morning completely broke.
Right.
No money.
Yeah, but you had a couple of good nights, though.
Had a couple of good nights, but you'd spend all your rent money and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And you were broke.
It's not really forward planning very well.
No, the forward planning was absolutely hopeless. Yeah. But this brings me to another sociological trend, right, which has raised its head in quite a wide public way.
Yeah.
And that is that Kate Moss's marriage appears to be a little bit on the rocks.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, with a guy called Ince, is it?
The guy from
Jamie Ince.
Jamie Ince, the guy from
the
band.
Killers.
Yeah, that's right.
Killers, yeah, okay, yeah. So anyway, I'm looking at this piece today and looking at the people who know Kate Moss, and they're saying, well, actually, the thing with Kate is, it could be because she's actually so enjoys socialising with her friends.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Right.
That maybe, her husband, I don't know, didn't fit quite into her life as a husband might expect to.
Well, I mean,
like
he's
that.
a rock star, so she probably thinks, I'll marry this rock star and we'll have this rock and roll lifestyle.
Yeah,
which is what, she genuinely has a rock and roll lifestyle.
Yeah, but she
flies off to Ibiza whenever she fancies, gets bladdered whenever she likes.
That's right.
And maybe he's not one of those kind of guys.
Maybe not, but she genuinely likes the company of her friends.
Yeah.
Now, you see, that's another interesting phenomenon, because a number of times in the era I'm talking about, when you sort of pick up ladies in nightclubs and that kind of stuff, sometimes you'd pick up a lady in a nightclub, and then within an hour, you'd bump into a couple of mates who were also in there, who were then going off to another nightclub, and you had to make your mind up whether you stayed where you were with the conquest you had just made.
Yes.
Or
and made good on it.
Good on it. So, or whether you wanted to join your two mates and go on the
razzle somewhere else,
with them.
So what was your choice?
I usually went off on the razzle with my two mates, usually.
I mean, it's not a massive town, Chester. It must have made a lot of women unhappy.
Oh, no, there were 6 or 8 nightclubs. It was a very active
you must
town.
have kept running into the same people that you either, treated badly or given the wrong phone number to.
No.
Did you never go back into the club, say, 2 or 3 weeks later, meet one of these women that you'd given the wrong number to?
Not really.
Really?
Or if you did, you just sort of pretended you didn't recognise them, or it wasn't me, or it must have been my brother, or something like that, But the thing is, because Chester was sort of a county town, a nice town, people had come from all sorts of places around Chester, from the Cheshire countryside, from North Wales, from all your Wrexham and all that kind of stuff. So
was there equivalent of the Bridge and Tunnel crowd then?
Yeah, there was really.
People who wanted to stay in Chester for the night.
Yeah, that's right, that sort of thing, yeah. But I mean, what I'm saying is, that website that was uncovered with all these names on and all that, fortunately in our day, there weren't any websites.
No.
So actually, you were untraceable. And because you were untraceable, it was like being a bank robber in the Wild West. Once you'd robbed a town, all you did was cut the wires to the telegraph, and you disappeared, and nobody was the wiser.
Absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
Now I've got loads more stuff to read out to you, which I will do in a moment.
Excellent.
We'll have more insight into Porky's early life.
Yes.
And of course, it's Ask Porky coming up in a little while.
Is.
So if you want to get some questions in that we haven't got yet, by all means send them in at the 2 mics. It's Talk Sport. We are the 2 mics, this is Talk Sport, and of course the new Premier League season is almost here, and the one way you can tell that is the case is that Selco Predictor is back. I'm going to tell you in a little while how you can go on and register for the Selco Predictor and have another chance to win £500. You're right there, Porky.
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. Now, all this week, and last week indeed, we've been having a little prediction from you, which is a bit more difficult than the Selco Predictor, because all you got to do there is predict some football scores. But you've been telling us about a whole variety of things that are going to happen.
Oh, yes.
So what do you got for us today?
Well, I'm going to predict what's going to happen in the 3rd test, okay?
Excellent,
that starts in a few hours' time, so let me tell you what's happening.
Right?
Edgbaston, indeed. I think Ian Bell's going to be a huge success. Remember, Ian Bell and Joe Root have got to be successful in their new positions, 3 and 4, of course, because if we are victim to another top-order collapse, which have been a blight on England in recent years, then we're going to be done for. So all eyes will be on Bell. If he delivers runs at 3, he can win England the Ashes and prolong a test career that's brought him 2,200s. I mean, he's getting on a bit now. He's in his early 30s, isn't he? 33, 34, something like that. But he's got to do it.
The England team generally is younger than the Aussies, isn't it?
That's right. But I suspect he'll do it. Now, let me tell you what else I think is going to happen, okay? We can't have sideways movement, although sideways movement is key, right? And we need that traditional English seam movement from the Edgbaston pitch, okay?
Right.
That will bring Australia's bowlers into it too, particularly John Hazelwood, but I'd rather have their top order being under pressure and England having a better chance of claiming 20 Australian wickets.
Well, the bad news I've got for you, and I'm sure a lot of people will be hoping your prediction is right, that Stephen Finn has been recalled.
Yes, that's
having
right.
Not played a test match since 2013.
That's right.
When he was deemed to be unselectable.
Well, that's right, but due to injury, he's back in, so you've got to give the boys support, okay?
Yeah.
Now, what I would also say is I think Moeen Ali has got a huge role in this one. He's got to continue showing improvement, right, as an off-spinner. Because Australia have started playing him differently. Don't know if you've noticed, but they have. And after they realised his gung-ho approach of going after him has given him wickets, then, they've changed it. Now, David Warner, been dismissed by Moeen in his last 3 innings. Did you know that?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
The big fat mouth David Warner, the Aussie who's got an awful lot to say for himself. But Warner realised in the second knock at Lords that he could score against him simply by milking him. So he's got to watch that, okay? Johnny Bairstow has come through what will be a first examination of his technique and temperament, okay? And I would have given Gary Balance one more go, really, down the order to see if he could have turned it round, but he didn't. And the backup paceman is key. Well, it's a blow to England to lose Mark Wood, of course, which has just been confirmed. You're right. It shouldn't be a huge blow. When we looked at the details of the pitch that were revealed yesterday, a lot of grass on it, so it will suit somebody like Stephen Finn, who you just talked about. Yeah, a lot of grass on it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
No, you know what I mean. It's not that, pitches can get worn down so quickly, OK?
Right, OK.
But mostly what I'm going to say is I predict that we'll get it because the big players have got to stand up, OK? They've got to show their character. They didn't get the chance to hit back after losing the last test of the series against the West Indies, if you remember, and then again New Zealand. So this is their chance to show they have what I call the ability to bring it back home, OK?
Right. Well,
late on in the series.
Let's hope, because there's a sporting prediction, that it's not going to be subject to the Porky jinx, as
absolutely.
everything else has been.
Absolutely.
And, of course, one thing that
they've got to do what Australia did after the Cardiff test, and that is come back very, very strong.
They have. Well, as one of the Aussies I heard on Drive talking a little bit earlier on yesterday said, you just have to figure it's now a 3-test series.
Exactly.
It's 1-1. Anything can happen. So, hopefully England will do well. You'll hear all the updates
what do you think of my analysis there?
I think your analysis is very, very sound.
Thank you.
Actually.
Thank you.
I think it sounded like you knew what you were talking about.
Well, of course I knew what I was talking about, you idiot.
First time tonight.
This is TalkSport, isn't it?
Well, it is.
Don't have amateurs on this station.
No, not normally, no. But anyway, you don't have to be as clever as Porky to come up with any sort of prediction for Selco Predictor. All you've got to do is play, and you've got to get the new free app, download it now, and get your mates involved in a mini-league as well. There's another £500 prize up for grabs this week for one lucky listener, and all you have to do to find yourself in with a chance of getting that is to register. So don't miss out. Head to TalkSport now, talksport.com/predictor, and get involved this week, because it's the Community Shield coming up at the weekend.
It certainly is.
Amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
How quickly that's come around.
That used to be called the Charity Shield,
It did.
And it used to be played at either one of the grounds or the other, not at Wembley.
I remember it was being played at Wembley.
No,
Kevin Keegan episode.
No.
Well, I mean, that's as far back as I go.
When they ripped off the shirts from each other. I remember that,
Well, that was at Wembley, wasn't it?
Well, it was, but I'm going back to when I was a kid,
I'm not going back to the 50s, for heaven's sake.
And it used to be played on a Saturday, not a Sunday. Yeah. And I remember one at Spurs, so that must have been 1967, when Spurs won the FA Cup, and the league champions that year were Manchester United.
Okay.
And I think United beat them 4-2 or something like that from memory. But it was at White Hart Lane.
Okay.
And that's where it used to be played. Well,
you didn't go to that, though, did you?
No, of course I didn't go to that. I was an Everton fan. But
was it on TV, then?
No, I read about it in the Football Pink.
Because again, I mean, going back to, say, the Bremner Keegan thing, one of the reasons I always remembered it was because it was always on television, and it was one of the few live games you got to watch.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, I think so.
The one that I remember mostly was in 1970, because we won the league championship. That was the season when I took the day off school to go and watch Everton beat West Brom, an evening game, and we won the championship that night. Alan Ball was our captain. And the following August, the first game of the season, was at Chelsea, and it was the Charity Shield at Stamford Bridge.
Stamford Bridge,
yeah. And we won 2-1. And Alan Whittle scored the winner. He was a blonde-haired fellow who went on to play for Crystal Palace. That's right, yeah. And that gave us a tremendous start to the season, but I'm afraid the season fell away, and Leeds United, I think Leeds United won the championship that season.
Oh, well.
But no, it's not called the Charity Shield anymore. It's called the Community Shield. I don't know why, because if you still give all the money to charity, it'd be quite a nice thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know why.
But they give us a
now, let me read you some text that I haven't read out yet, because we're getting behind it. Neil in Cheltenham says this: Mike, you're absolutely right. Gloucester is a complete dump. I live in Cheltenham, just 4 miles away, which is so much better. Gloucester City Centre. He says Gloucester City Centre is like walking through the land of the living dead.
Oh, dear
and he says, great show.
Dear me,
Michael from Gosport, which is your part of the world, says, hi Mike, old Tom Parry knows his roads when he goes to the New Forest, M27, A27. Has the forest now moved, as it's the A31? Old Porky must go down the coast the wrong way.
Oh, is it? I thought it was A27.
I thought it was off the A27.
Yeah, I thought. Well, I come off the M27. That morphs into the A27, and that keeps going as far south as sort of, I don't know, Exeter or somewhere like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Here's one from John in Durham. Talking of fun guy, you two are fun guys.
Oh, that's I like that. Yeah, well done.
Derek in Pencoed says, Mike, the only wild boar that is a danger to the public is Porky Parry.
Oh yeah, I don't think I'm a wild boar.
And Captain Beefheart says the closest Porky got to being a pilot was when he bought an Airfix kit.
Yeah, probably. And I used to get a needle and heat the needle over the stove, the gas stove, and then puncture the side of my Messerschmitts with holes to indicate that the Spitfires had been firing at them and successfully damaged them. You see what I mean?
Is that right?
Yeah. Talking about, what did you say there? Airfix kit?
An Airfix kit,
No, you said something else. What was it?
What do you mean? Something else that I read out? Is your memory so bad now? You don't know what I said 5 minutes ago.
No, it triggered something 5 seconds ago. It triggered something in my brain.
The Wild Boar from Derek, or Fungi from John, or
it wasn't
Tom Parry from Michael in Gosport?
No, it wasn't. Gosport, no, it wasn't that. No, I'll tell you what I was going to tell you about, right?
Yeah. Well, I haven't finished reading out some of these things yet.
Please do.
Rick in Manchester says, Dear Mike, I was wondering why I have problems sleeping. Then I realised it's impossible to sleep when you're laughing your head off. Mike, your line about a booster seat on the plane means I'm in the spare room for waking my girlfriend up from laughing.
I didn't think that was very funny.
Rick in Manchester.
I think that was funny.
Sorry about that, Rick.
You know, that was a dopey comment. Anyway, you got any more of these?
Yeah, David, this is a good one. Now, technically, I'm not sure if this is an Ask Porky. I don't want to impinge on the Ask Porky, but
right, okay.
MG, please ask Porky what else he would like that delightful lady Sean to wear apart from stilettos when they meet for a romantic date.
Yeah.
Tell him not to let the listeners down when he gets back to the penthouse flat.
Yes. Well, we're not going to get into that. I'm not into grubby discussions about personal relationships
or Rogerisation even.
Well, I mean, come on. Now that's a bit unfair, isn't it?
Well, this is a new word, one of the new words that you've coined.
But you can't mention the lovely lady Sean, what was her name? Sean...
You've forgotten her name already?
No, Sean...
You've forgotten her name?
Sean Kathleen and Rogerisation.
Yeah.
Rogerisation is a more generic term for things that may have happened in the past, may happen in the future, but not specifically. You see what I mean?
You think she realises that you've now given her a surname of Rogerisation?
No.
Sean Kathleen Rogerisation. I wish she's still listening.
No. Well, she's probably still listening, but I mean, you must be respectful to young ladies who come onto the show.
Because that's what you like.
Yes, exactly.
You're certainly not disrespectful when you give them a number which is not, in fact, a real number, so that you can avoid them in the future.
Well, I mean...
What a terrible man you are.
Well, that was... I mean, no, but that was a meeting that had only taken place for 3 or 4 hours in total. You don't want to get sort of hooked on those sort of things, do you?
Not including travelling time.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, exactly right. Anyway, coming up next, it is Ask Porky, right here on TalkSport.
On DAB, digital radio, and 1089 and 1053 AM.
A terrific performance.
Turn of pace and eye for goal.
Shout about it.
That piece of music signals one thing. It is time for Ask a Porky. And so lots of you have been sending in your questions, your problems, and your downright sort of quandaries.
By the way, if I could just say that record, by the way, Help, which is the signature tune to this part of the show, and this feature each week, was released yesterday in 1963.
Oh, was it really?
It was,
Oh, well, there we are. What a fantastic anniversary that is.
Yes.
And who wrote it?
Lennon and McCartney, but mostly John Lennon. That was John Lennon's literally a plea. Help, I'm going mad. The Beatles is driving me mad, and I don't know who I am anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Right.
Anyway, we haven't got a lot of time for any more Beatles memorabilia, right? So we'll get straight to the
get on
questions.
with
as ever, if you can be as concise as you possibly can
while
course. Helping people.
Of course.
Here's one from Bill. It's a sporting one to begin with. Does Porky think Alan Kirbishley could be an ideal replacement for Roy Hodgson at England?
I think Kirbishley's a great manager. I think he did a fantastic job at Newcastle. I think he's doing a brilliant job at Crystal Palace. I think he would make an excellent England manager.
What?
Sorry?
Alan Kirbishley?
Yeah.
You sure you don't mean Alan Pardew?
Oh, yeah, of course. Sorry, Alan Pardew. Sorry, yeah. Sorry, who did you say? Alan Kirbishley?
I said Alan Kirbishley.
Oh, right,
I know
sorry,
it sounds a bit like Pardew, but generally speaking, I don't think he was at Newcastle.
He wasn't, no, I'm sorry. I thought you said Pardew. I've got my ears cleared.
You've got to listen to the end of the sentence.
I think Alan Kirbishley's a great guy, and he has got a fantastic track record, hasn't he?
Well, he was last at Fulham, wasn't he?
Yes.
But
he
not
was
very long.
as an assistant manager, but not for very long. But his main claim to fame is what he did at Charlton. He did a fantastic job, kept them in the Premier League, and knows how to work his way around a squad of players. However, I think he's been out of football for a little bit too long to come back in and catch up with the modern pace of footballing life. And the other thing I'd say is, I think I'd have almost anybody except Roy Hodgson, because I don't believe he should still be England manager.
What about Alan Pardew?
Well, Alan Pardew would make great England manager indeed, and that's who I thought you were talking about. But I just think that to bring somebody back in who's not been managing football for so long would be a mistake.
Yeah, OK. Next question from John. It says, if Porky could be granted any wish, what would it be and why?
Well, that's a really difficult question because we all wish for everything. If I had one wish, and I don't wish to get sentimental, I would wish for my heart to be repaired and be normal. Because although I keep telling people only one-third of my heart works... No, it's not. Although I say only one-third of my heart works, it's true. Only one-third of my heart does work. So I can't drink as much as other people. I can't...
Well, you do make a pretty good effort of it.
No. I can't move around as much as other people. I can walk,
You walk 30 miles a week?
Yeah, I do, but it's at walking pace. I can't run after a bus.
You walk
because...
at walking pace?
Yeah, I do.
Really?
But I can't run after a bus because I wouldn't be able to run because there's not enough oxygen in my body because the heart doesn't work.
You go by bus anyway.
And I walk, and I live with the constant, shadow in the back of my mind. It could all be over in the next 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And so I would wish for
Keeps you
my
on your
heart.
toes, though,
It keeps me on my toes, definitely. But I would wish for my heart to be repaired. I know that sounds selfish, but that's something I
don't think that'll come as any great surprise.
I could do with.
Yeah, all right. Next question from Nick.
Yes.
My mate wants to stay at my flat tomorrow after the test match, even though I don't have a spare room. What do I do?
Well, that's entirely up to you, but I wouldn't have nobody staying in my flat if I didn't have a spare room. Where's the boy going to sleep? On the couch? And I wouldn't have anybody sleeping on the couch.
You wouldn't even let me stay at your place when you did have a spare room.
Well, no, but I paid for a hotel for you to stay in because I thought you'd be more comfortable there.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't let me stay in your place then.
No, well, it was unsatisfactory. Right. I didn't want you to get up in the morning and start smoking and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah,
I thought you didn't want me to open a locked room.
Well, there is no locked room. But the other thing is, I wouldn't like anybody to sleep on my couch if I had a couch because I'd be worried that deposits from their head, i.e. their hair and dandruff and all that, would end up on my couch, and I wouldn't like that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Here's one from Damien.
Yeah.
My dad said I'm his favourite child. Should I feel bad about my siblings? I am the oldest.
No, you should feel good about it, but you should use it as a platform to actually help your siblings and lead them through life. If you're the eldest, then you have responsibilities. If you're not the eldest, but you are the favourite, you have another responsibility, and that is to share the goodwill you generate to your father amongst your brothers and sisters.
Here's one from Richard.
Yes.
He says, I did a 46-mile A3 trip with the cruise control on at 73, but it took much longer than 25 minutes. Where did I go wrong?
I've no idea, and I can't work out that mathematical equation in my head over such a short time. All I can tell you is...
Well, if he's doing 46 miles, right,
yeah.
and he's travelling at 73 miles an hour,
yes,
then it's got to take more than half an hour, isn't it?
Yeah, it should do, yeah. How long did it take him?
He said it took him more than 25 minutes.
Oh, I don't know what he's talking about. What I would say is I go up and down the A3 all the time in the old Merc, and I don't have any problem getting up and down. Last time I came back was at 5:30 on Monday morning this week, and I got from Gosport to Epsom in an hour and 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
So the cruise control was at what speed?
Well, sort of nearly within the speed limit.
Nearly?
Yeah, well, I think the speed limit's too low in this country. The speed limit should be 80 miles an hour, and that would help the economy improve by 1%.
Yeah. So you were going over the speed limit then?
I may have been.
OK. Here's one from Colin. It says, some friends and I want to take our wives to London. Where's the most romantic spot for Rogerisation?
Well, let me tell you, there's plenty of places in London for Rogerisation, but if you've got any air miles, bring those with you, because one time I impressed a lady by staying with her on an illicit night in a hotel in Park Lane, the Londonderry, as it used to be. It's called something else now. I think it's called the Mandarin
I don't know
now.
that one.
The Oriental It's the Mandarin Oriental now. It's a very expensive room. I think it was £625 in those days. But the reason...
How long ago was this?
Oh, quite a few years ago. The reason I was able to afford it was I had a huge trench of air miles clocked up on...
A trench?
A trench. No, a huge trench of air miles. Clocked up on flying to and fro to America over a number of years.
Being paid for by somebody else?
Being paid for by somebody else, obviously. And I impressed her so much. The thing that most impressed her was when we didn't go out for dinner, we had some dinner in the room, and when the guy arrived, she thought the man would arrive carrying a tray.
Yeah.
In fact, he arrived with one of those wonderful tables on wheels, you know, and brought it in.
It was called a trolley.
Well, it's not. It was a table.
No, it's a trolley.
No, it's not a trolley. But it was a table because
it's a room service trolley.
Because it had flaps on either side, which he then pulled out to make a full table with a silver salver on the front, bottle of champagne. It was absolutely fantastic. Do something like that.
She obviously didn't get out much, this girl.
No, she didn't get out much that night. I'm telling you, we had a very romantic night.
That's fantastic. Here's Matt, who says, I would like to ask Porky which is the longest love relationship with a female he has had. And he says, P.S. love the show. Well, presumably it was that woman there who didn't get out all night.
No, don't be ridiculous. No, it was probably my first girlfriend when I was, and it went on from 16 till the age of 21.
Oh, right.
5 years.
You must have given her the right phone number then.
Well, obviously, in those days, actually, she didn't even have a phone in her house. Her father was a sergeant major in the army, and they'd just been posted to a new camp just outside Chester, and it wasn't fitted with a phone, so I had to go up there and talk to her all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
How bizarre. Now, here's one from Neil, who says, my girlfriend insists on talking to me, and my son insists I play with him. I'm now falling behind on your podcasts. What should I do?
Well, what you do is you can do both at the same time. If you get the equivalent of what I used to have in those days, which was a Sony Walkman, right? And if you put that on your head and play them, you can do other activities at the same time. You don't have to sort of sit there, recline on the couch with a couple of beers and take in our podcasts in real time, so to speak, at audio levels
you can't
within
play
the
with
room.
Your children without paying attention to them.
Of course you can.
No, that's a terrible piece of advice.
No, of course you can. Of course you can. What you do is, if you're playing football with your kids or something, you can throw the ball at them and kick the ball at them and all that kind of stuff and still listen to the podcast. You've got to multitask in this modern world, Mike. That's your problem. Yeah. You're either, interested in bladderation when you go down to Sussex, or you're interested in looking after your kids, but you can't do the two at the same time. Makes you a poor father.
It doesn't, actually. Here's one from Lou. And I'm rather sort of dreading asking this question, actually.
Right.
My question to Mike Parry is, what is your favourite Elvis song, and would you sing a bit of it for us?
Well, I think it was, you see, when Elvis died, that was a terrible thing, and I was down on holiday in Torquay, and we switched on a little black and white telly, and they went through a repertoire of Elvis songs, and the one I most... Repertoire. And the one I most remember was the one that goes, this time the girl is gonna stay. This time the girl is gonna stay. This time the girl is gonna stay for more than just a day. Right? You like that
really
one?
Good you do the backing vocal as well.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but it was a great song.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Well, I just can't help believing.
I don't think that's the
when
same
I
song.
Feel her
you never
hand
sing more
in
than
my
one
hand.
of them.
No, that was the same song.
Really?
When I feel her hand in my hand. And a long and lonely, whatever. Anyway, go on,
Yeah.
Go
All
on.
right, well, so we've answered that one. Here's this one from Mike, who says, if your life so far was compared to a movie, would you say yours was more a disaster, a crime drama, or just more likely straight to DVD?
Oh, no. Mine, if my life was put in a movie, it'd be highly successful. I would say it'd be the equivalent to The Wolf of Wall Street. And, it would be an absolutely spanking, energetic... full of, energetic, full of energy, obviously.
Energetic and full of energy.
Yeah, thrusting, bouncing, beautifully, noisy, explosively, firework tale of a successful life, without a shadow of a doubt.
All right, here's one from Murphy. He says, my dad's 65.
Yeah.
Is he an OAP, ready for a free bus pass, or is he in early middle age?
Oh, he's in early middle age at 65. Believe me, at 65 these days, you are barely you're not touching old age, not at 65 in my view. I think you've got to get to, I think you need to get to 72 before you're in old age these days. 65 is a great age. Sadly, my mate, who I told you about earlier in the year, died on the cruise line of the Queen Victoria in Venice at the sadly young age of 63.
Yeah.
And another mate of mine called Sangy in Sangster, he sent me a card.
His name away.
No, he sent a card saying still alive at 45, because that was an invitation to his 45th birthday party. Yeah. But then he dropped dead in the kitchen, as I told you, before the party happened.
That's not
terribly tragic.
All right, final question, slightly philosophical one from Jimmy. Yeah. Is Mike Parry God?
No, of course not. You'd be mad to say you were God. You'd have some sort of fixation about being superior to other beings. However, I do follow the Christian way of life. God, I believe, as I understand it, in my Christian worshipping, is a Christian. And therefore, I would say that whilst I would never claim to be God, I do try to follow the godly pursuits.
Yes. Well, thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
We didn't get around to reading out all of them, but thank you very much for all of your submissions. Yep. And there'll be another Ask Porky next week, of course. I'll tell you what we need to do coming up next.
Yeah.
We need to work out the subject of this week's Porky quiz.
Okay.
So have a think about it, and we'll come up with a subject next on TalkSport.
Locker Kalite Coco. Locker Kalite Coco. Locker Kalite Coco.
That's very good, I have to say. Now, Becky from New Zealand is feeling sorry for you again after that ridiculous wish list thing of yours.
Yes.
She says, I'm crying again. Let's hope the great humanitarian man of the people, Sky TV advocate, gets his heart wish fulfilled.
Thank you. A bit of humanity introduced in the show at last.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly right. Yeah. Now, on the subject of singing, funnily enough,
right.
I don't want you to sing again, but Brian in Islington has texted into 1880. I said, Dear Mr. Graham, a great show tonight, gents. Given his love of singing, has Porky the Great Christian ever considered recording a single in aid of a charity? How about a duet with MG in time for Christmas with a song along the lines of Please Release Me?
Well, I did, of course, make a record. It was called Paint It Black.
Yes.
With the what were they called? The Rolling...
The Rolling Stones?
No, it was...
Strolling Bones?
No, it wasn't the Strolling Bones. It was the Rolling Clones.
Oh, right,
Rolling Clones, that's right. And the Clonettes, who were two beautiful young ladies who were my backing singers, you know.
Right.
And that got into the chart at number 64. I've still got the video, actually. Must post that on Two Mics TV.
Find that, won't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Jennifer says, Porky's parenting skills. Part 1, kick the ball at them while listening to the Two Mics podcast.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Well, it doesn't really work, does it?
I think it would.
A couple of people have said that game you suggested was at White Hart Lane was actually at Old Trafford.
Oh, was it?
And apparently Pat Jennings scored a goal.
Oh, was that the one in which he kicked the ball out and scored a goal? Okay,
maybe.
Fair enough, okay.
Steve says, not sure about the Wolf of Wall Street, more like the Fool of Fleet Street with Danny DeVito in the part of Porky.
Yeah, that's very nice, isn't it?
Harsh, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And here's another one from Jennifer. Says, your ideal woman, non-cat lover but lover of soggy vegetables.
Soggy vegetables? No. I just like vegetables. You know, what's wrong with that?
Though, don't you?
Yeah, I do like them boiled, yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. Bill says, ha, Porky the stamina-laden Lothario. You're going nowhere tonight, wench. Absolutely hilarious.
Well, I didn't say that, did I?
It came out like that, though.
Well, it shouldn't have come out like that. What I meant was, if you paid 650 quid for a room for the night, you're not exactly going to say, right, I think we're out for dinner now, are you?
No,
you're going to use the facility, which is the room, and have dinner in the room. Simple as that.
Did you have dinner fully dressed or not?
Well, I'm not going to go into that, Mike, am I?
Why
I mean,
not?
for goodness sake,
Why
you
not?
know. Well, do I ask you what happens in your bedroom? No,
you don't.
No, exactly.
You're telling a story about this very expensive night out, which,
Yes,
by the way,
right.
all those years ago, twice as expensive as any hotel I've ever paid money for.
Oh, yeah, it was very expensive. It was a suite, and it was in what is now the Mandarin Oriental. It was in Park Lane. You looked out over Buckingham Palace Gardens, so it was a very expensive suite.
Yeah.
Now then...
Johnny in Essex finally says, I don't know where Mr. Parry gets his info from, but the Help song was released in 1965, not 1963.
I meant 1965.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I did mean...
Right.
You're absolutely right there. I did mention 65. And I tell you why. I was quite surprised it was as late as 65 because, of course, within 2 years, Sgt. Pepper's came out. And I thought the development from what was basically a humdrum ditty, help, I need somebody, help, and all that kind of stuff,
Well,
to
again,
the magic of Sgt. Pepper's 2 years later in 67, The Summer of Love, was so dramatic a development.
But if it was about the man who should not be named kind of crisis inside himself
was.
the band,
It was.
that would probably not have been 63 because at that point they'd only really just got
Yeah,
started.
it's absolutely. It was 65. I'm sorry, of course it was. Yeah,
Right.
And one of the, because I've read all the Beatles books, and one of them was that they used to go to places like Manila and all that, and they upset the royal family because they wouldn't turn up for every royal function and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also in some foreign countries they went to, they literally had to endure people who were disabled and crippled being brought to them. To touch their clothes in the hope that the greatness of the Beatles would cure them. I mean, it was biblical stuff, you know what I mean? And then said in the end, this all drove him completely mad.
I'm not surprised.
Because,
well, it would have driven anybody mad, really.
It would have driven him mad. The other thing that drove him mad was that he was a musician. Yeah. So when he got up on a stage, he liked to be able to play music and get some appreciation from the audience.
Rather than just the screaming.
Yeah, you couldn't hear it. They literally unplugged their guitars from the mic, the speakers. Yeah, they were very basic in those days because it didn't make any difference. Nobody could tell whether they were singing or not. And whilst Paul McCartney was a born entertainer and loved getting up on a stage, in the end, Lennon said, I just wasn't going to do it anymore. And that was the start, the end of the Beatles. I only want to go in the studio. Now, Paul, I don't want to go on stage anymore. Right. Paul still wanted to tour, and you can understand why. He's a central part of
he still does it now, doesn't he?
Of course he does, yeah.
Now, what about the quiz this weekend? Not this weekend,
okay.
It's Thursday night, I should say.
I tell you what. Now, I don't like doing subjects which which isolates some of our audience.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I hope this won't isolate our audience, right? Now, the thing is, I've been desperate to try and get to see a film down on the coast last weekend.
Yeah.
But because of the America's Cup racing, I couldn't make it. But I'll probably make it this weekend.
Okay.
And it's about the Beach Boys and Brian Wilson.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, one of my favourite groups. So I thought it should be about the Beach Boys, and their records, right?
Okay.
But I want to think. I'm thinking to myself, God, is that going to isolate part of our audience who may have never heard a Beach Boys record?
I wouldn't have thought so.
You know, I mean, most
the Beach Boys are technically still going.
Oh, yeah, they are, yeah, absolutely. Brian Wilson's certainly still going.
Yeah.
And so is Mike Love, the lead singer. So I think we'll do the Beach Boys, if that's okay with you.
I'm sure is acceptable. Well, I'll have to run it past the independent quiz masters.
Well, exactly, yeah.
I'm sure they can find 10 questions on the Beach Boys.
Good,
They've
that's
been
excellent.
around for long enough.
They have, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
good idea.
We'll find an expert, maybe in-house, and we shall go from there.
That's right. Now, look, I want to ask you, whilst we still got time, do your children still go to libraries?
Yes, they do, actually.
Do they?
Yeah.
Now, this is very unusual because I'll tell you why. I'm looking at studies all the time. Government figures show 76.4% of 5 to 10-year-olds used a library in 2010,
right.
But by this year, that had fallen to 67.7%.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
I.e., libraries...
Do you remember there was a time, and people will no doubt say that this is some kind of, political rant that I'm about to go on, but I'm not. We were threatened with all sorts of terrible things that were going to happen to libraries. We were told that, because the cuts were coming, libraries were going to shut down.
Yeah.
Now, it may well be that some libraries have shut down, but any library that I'm near, either in London or down in Sussex, has not shut down, and it's still open all the time.
Is there is there any purpose in libraries these days when you can obtain almost any piece of information you want on the internet?
It's a good question, but for kids to actually have somewhere to go, I think it's quite a good thing. I mean, they don't go there every single day, but they go probably once a week to the library.
Yeah.
And they can borrow DVDs, for example.
Yeah.
They can borrow games.
And do they do that?
Sometimes, yeah.
And are you happy for them to bring home like DVDs and books and things which have been used by other people and might carry diseases?
Diseases?
Yes.
It's a library, not a hospital.
No, I know, but I mean, people, have taken them to their homes. They might have grubby hands. They might have left food deposits on them, and all this kind of stuff.
Some kind of cleansing device before. No, of course I don't mind them doing that. I mean, they go to school and they share all sorts of germs with all sorts of people.
Yeah, okay. Is that right?
And a school classroom is more of a germ factory than any library I've ever seen. Yeah.
Is it? Okay. Now I remember the library very well in Chester. It was right next to the post office, and it was a beautiful library. You went up the stairs.
Is it still there?
I don't know, actually. You went up I can't remember the name of the street it was in, but you went up the stone. There was a great pub opposite, by the way. When I got to work for the Chester Chronicle, we used to use a pub opposite. But you went up the stone steps into the lobby of the library, and then there were two circular, staircases that took you up to the upper floors. And I remember the smell of the books was beautiful. And the reference library I used to go to when I was at the King's School, Chester, to research, stuff for my A-levels and all that kind of stuff. I used to love the library.
You never went to research anything?
I did.
I don't believe you.
I did.
I'm sure you got somebody else to do that for you.
There was a pub opposite which a mate and I used to use. No, we did, honestly. We used to tell everybody at school, we're knocking off early, going to the library, and we used to go to the pub opposite.
Yeah. Well, when I was growing up, when I was a 14-year-old, I joined the Hampstead Photographic Society.
Oh, yes.
And they used to have meetings every Tuesday night in the library, which was just down from where I lived.
Yes.
And on one occasion, there was a much bigger, more modern library in Swiss Cottage, which was further down.
Yeah.
And I had some pictures exhibited in an exhibition there once when I was 15.
Did you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Some photographs.
Have you still got them?
I still have, yeah.
What were they pictures of?
One was of Tubby Isaac's eel and jellied eel stall in Brick Lane Market.
Okay.
I used to take black
that sounds
and white.
Interesting.
Well, my dad brought me in large, you see.
Right.
I was quite young. I was quite interested in photography. I used to develop my own pictures and frame them and everything. And another one was just of a street scene down near Liverpool Street, I think.
Okay.
But
sounds good.
But they got selected. And so libraries, I've always had something to do with libraries. I quite like them.
I've always liked libraries because of the... you don't have silent rooms in libraries anymore, don't you?
What do you mean?
Well, you can't have silent rooms with modern technology because of the tapping of laptops.
Oh, well, but they're quite quiet, though.
No,
because... When was the last time you were in a library? Don't lie.
No, I'm not going to lie. The last time
You haven't been in a library for 20 years.
No, that's not true. I went to the library in... Where did I go? Yeah, in Gosport, quite recently.
Why?
To research a book I'm going to write.
Oh, you're going to write another book?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What's it going to be about?
It's going to be about press gangs because Gosport was the capital in Britain of press gangs.
Oh, yeah.
And they used to steal the people off the streets.
So you're going to write a historical book?
Yes, I am, yeah.
Are you?
Yes, definitely,
Who's
yeah.
going to publish that? Why would they?
Well, I haven't worked on that one yet. Well, because it'll be a bestseller, because everyone will really love it. It's a great subject,
How will you
isn't
describe the colour of the sea?
The colour of the sea...
Because obviously it can't be inky black.
No, it won't be inky
white
black.
as a tin of Dulux paint.
No, it'll be the sea looks grey when I look out upon it from my balcony in Gosport. Well, as grey as gravel. Why are you laughing?
That'll be the opening line.
It's
like, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. The sea was like gravel. That's awful.
No,
you can't start it like that.
No, you asked me what colour the sea is, and I said it's...
Only because you're famous for describing the colours of things so well.
Yes.
I.e., the sky was inky black.
Yes.
And the snow was as white as a tin of Dulux paint.
Yes, that's right.
To that you can add, this latest...
and the sea was as grey as gravel. What's wrong with that? I don't see anything. I mean, you're right. The sea was as blue as the shirt on the back of an Everton footballer.
Yeah, that would be good too.
Yeah?
I mean, it's just one after another.
Blue. It's not blue, you idiot.
Every one a winner.
Do you know that there were so many press gangs in Gosport?
Yeah, I don't think anybody cares about that.
Yeah, they do.
I wouldn't write a book about that.
Oh, no, they do. It's a fascinating story.
No, it is.
I mean, for instance, the son of a wealthy man walked down into Gosport once because he was going to the Farmers' Fair.
Yeah.
He got snatched by a press gang. He spent the next 7 years aboard a Royal Navy boat fighting for his country.
Yeah, but everybody knows about that.
And wasn't allowed to come home. No, it's a fascinating historical tale, and there's a demand for it. Of that I know, I'm for sure.
Yeah.
Because, of course, I was... where I live is near Haslar Hospital.
Right.
Haslar was the last military hospital in this country, the Royal Navy Hospital. And, disgracefully and disgustingly, the government... cut back and cut it down when it used to cater for, terrible injuries that men received in battle. But, I've told you this before, I'm sure, but the battle up the creek without a paddle.
Up the creek without a paddle. It wasn't a battle, though, was it?
No, that was Haslar Creek.
Right.
Haslar Creek is where they put the hospital, and the reason they put it on the creek is because...
None of this is coming as any great surprise to me.
No.
Why would you write suddenly... Why would anybody want to buy a book written by you about that?
Oh, because it'd be a fantastic book. Utterly fantastic and fascinating, don't you think? I mean, can you imagine? You and I suddenly decided, come over to my place, and we go strolling down Gosport High Street to hit a few pubs for a few drinks.
Yeah.
As we come out of the second pub, because, people would think we were intoxicated, even though you and I wouldn't be.
Right.
They suddenly snatch us from behind, cover our mouths in
I hate that.
in
chloroform.
Chloroform, that's right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Drag you away, and then you wake up in chains on a boat heading out of Portsmouth Harbour.
To be honest, it wouldn't have been any more strange than the first time we went down to your place and I thought I was staying with you, and then we got onto the ferry and you said, I'm only buying a one-way ticket for you because you're not coming back.
Yeah, but
then I ended up, and I woke up in some strange hotel.
No, you didn't. It was the Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
And I paid for it for you.
Yeah,
You're a very ungrateful individual, you are. I gave you bottles and bottles of booze in my place.
Yeah.
We enjoyed, for some unknown reason, that night a spectacular fireworks show over the harbour, didn't we?
That's true, yeah.
And yet you're still moaning and whinging. I don't know what's wrong with you. I don't know what's wrong with you.
You
in
might
life.
as well say, imagine what it would have been like when you were walking down the street in the middle of plague-ridden London.
Yeah.
And instead of actually going out for a nice drink and something to eat and a pie, we ended up dying of the plague and being buried in Blackheath.
Well, it could have happened, couldn't it? That's what I'm saying. It's all a horrible prospect, I have to say.
Yeah.
Certainly is.
Well, I'll tell you what a horrible prospect is you writing another book. But we'll talk about libraries some more tomorrow because we're out of time, unfortunately.
Yes.
And it'll be Porky Vision tomorrow night, of course.
Yes.
So,
by the way, I've got some TV shows to tell you about tomorrow.
Oh, good, because it is a TV review.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that'd be great.
I'm going to
It's time for everything.
Going to review. Are You Being Served? No, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. They've got a revival of it at the moment.
Porky and his time machine television.
Yeah.
Anyway, also
and more modern stuff. And more modern stuff.
More modern. Than that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics.
Look at the light!
Don't forget to follow the Two Mics at the Two Mics on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mics TV.
Foraging courses have become so popular, they are stripping the forest of fungi. We can go to areas where we know fungi of all sorts grow, and you... Why are you laughing?
Because I don't know what you're going on about.
You know what I'm going on about.
Of this?
The whole country's being stripped of fungi, and it's causing a huge problem. I don't know why I bother us.
I don't know why you bother either.
30 minutes later, he was smoking crack in the lavatory and caught his hair on fire.
If you love the Two Mikes podcast, you'll love the live show. Weekday overnights from 1am on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM and via the TalkSport app. TalkSport, your Premier League station with exclusive commentaries every weekend.
What an absolute corker!
TalkSport.